Yeah, I think any business probably, not just martial arts, but we are in the people business, that's for sure, right? So when they walk in the door, how you greet them, whether it's clean, they can tell if there's the energy of the people sitting down, whether that's sometimes, it's crowded at the door, it's not crowded at the door, has a lot to do with that too, when you first walk in, whether the energy's right for you or not.
Yeah.
You'll know, I'll be honest with you, a lot of people come to our gyms or come to gyms and they go, it takes them a week or whatever. And honestly, I think most people can figure it out in one day. But I think that it's fair enough to give anybody a week's chance to see that, what are the members like? What is the energy like? Do I want to be here? Does it meet my schedule? And so it gives you that chance. And the other part, for me anyways, and I know most gyms will probably disagree, but they're more like, a lot of times like car salesmen. They want to sell you something the first day.
Come business.
Sit down, yes, and I know it's a business and we have to make money at doing this, right? Because, but at the same time, for me, I'm looking for long-term relationships.
Yeah.
It's not, for the next 3 months. Because if they make that, they sign the dotted line sometimes and you force them, they're not going to stick around anyways. They're going to be there for a week, couple weeks, and then they decide, oh, I made a bad decision. Or they're there 3 or 4 months. And then, sometimes it works out. Sometimes it just depends where you're at. But, trying to get them to sign the dotted line, and there's so many tactics to that. And there are some good ones, but there are some really bad ones that you don't want to follow, right? It's like, you don't want to be that. For me, I don't want to be that school. So I think that's why a lot of times we're able to hold on students for a long time. My relationships, I have a relationship with every one of you guys at the gym, and there's not anybody.
You know the names of everybody.
I know everybody. I know at least 3 or 4 things about you, and and they're sincere. They really are. I mean, I sit down, take the time, and we all do. Sit there to conversate. I think those things are important. Again, I think that when you come to a gym like that, martial arts gym, or especially today, everybody talks about jiu-jitsu. We have a lot of curriculums, but I think the biggest thing is that everybody's looking for that. The one thing that martial arts has to bring, that when you're teaching or open, have something is, what is the human needs, that we're looking for today, right? It used to be self-defense, fight, but think about it. I mean, most people, unless you're out after midnight or doing something where you shouldn't be, right, you don't really need the self-defense. I mean, yeah, somebody can honk at you and pull you over, but that's a decision you're making on your own. But at the same time, I mean, most of the stuff that you're coming from martial arts gyms is a human needs. People are fighting anxiety, loneliness, those type of things. So the camaraderie. So like when you come to a gym, a lot of times, especially with jiu-jitsu, is so much contact with, everybody there, putting you in some awkward positions.
Yeah.
And, you don't have time to think about the bad things or the good things. You're just thinking about what's happening to you right now. And so I think that's what gyms like ours bring, that, and not just ours, I think other people too, but it just depends on who the people is and how they treat their business, I know people that are making a lot of money at this, right, and been doing it for 20, 30 years, right, and they don't do this anymore. They don't get on the floor anymore. They don't teach. And I'm thinking to myself, man, that couldn't be me, man. I don't know how you could do that, right?
Yeah.
And it's not the money part, it's just, I just like being there, training, it's so much fun, that, and the energy, and people say, hey, Professor, you still train? Of course,
Sure.
But I get that from you guys, right? Because you guys are the young energy, strong energy, and I like, and that's what keeps me youthful, right?
Yeah. And now that you say that, definitely you notice or you see that self-defense is not one of the priorities why people goes to the gym, or let's say 2 out of 10 or 3 out of 10, you see some emotions. I mean, like, for example, fear. I mean, people who goes and don't have the confidence just as a person. And because for me, that's one of the reasons I go. I feel more confident. I'll feel better. And not just because I learn a different discipline or martial art. It's just because it gives me that boost as a person. Okay, I know something now. I know how to protect myself, how to protect my family, or I have this tool that I maybe don't need it, but I know I have it. and it gives me a boost and energy for other things that I do, like at work. I feel confident sometimes to talk to someone who does jiu-jitsu as well, who does boxing. Oh, let's talk about it, because I know, and I don't have that. Maybe I know. I mean, I have the knowledge, and I can have the conversation. I can talk about it, and if they say, "Hey, let's spar," maybe in the past, oh, no, I pass, bro, I pass. Now, hey, let's do it, because I know we don't go. I mean, like hard on each other. We're just gonna have fun. It's gonna be a training. But if you see, or if you are in a situation where you need it, maybe you know
Right.
how to react.
Yeah, I think that sometimes, like, depending on the instructors, right? You know, you have a lot of older instructors like myself, and then you have the next level and they grade, and then you have the newest guys coming through. And I think, you know, this is one of the things that jiu-jitsu brings, is that experience, right? Is that, you know, you can have a new black belt or intermediate black belt, meaning, I don't know, 4 or 5 years, 6 years, right? And then you have a more seasoned one, right? And then you have, say, a 50-year-old guy coming in, and he can't do everything that brand new black belt teaches, right? Because he's busy teaching so much athletic like stuff. And so it kind of, you know, for me and Jason, that we do this together, my son Jason, like, well, of course, we're able to, like, bounce off of each other, right? He looks at me as the head instructor, but also as his father. But I also look at, you know, everybody, like, everybody can't do what Jason does all the time, right? And he knows that too. He's learned that, you know, how to, you know, bring it down for 40-year-olds, 50-year-olds, that they can't do everything that 20-year-old can do. And I look at it the same way, right? So, like, you know, everybody has their different, but probably the biggest thing that on any martial arts level, that what you just said, was fear. And everybody deals with it different ways, and they're, you know, they don't understand the different levels of it, you know. And that, again, this comes through experience, right?
Mm-hmm.
And but I think the levels of fear is very real. Whether it's, you know, people could say, "Oh, I'm not scared. I'm not this." That's fine, but there's different levels to fear, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you know, I got guys that fight MMA, and I'm going to tell you what, their fear is not being scared of fighting. Their fear is everything else, like making that walk to that cage, making that walk to that ring, thinking about what everybody else is going to think about them. That's fear. That's a legit fear.
Yes.
And so you got to figure out how, you know, how do I adjust that? How do I make that work? You know, and I've been there and I've done that already. So as a fighter, as an experienced person, you know, keep saying experienced person, but, you know, I'm going to be 65, man, this Saturday. You know, like the
I know.
first. So, you know. With that, you know, that experience, my wisdom comes from my experience, right? And that's anybody. Anybody's gonna go into that. But these guys come into this and they're, you know, they're doubting themselves. I can tell you what, I mean, I know a lot of guys, not just my guys, but a lot of guys, including yourself, like, I've seen you perform in the gym, like, you're like on fire, you're doing good stuff, and I'm like, oh man, he's ready to go. And then all of a sudden you get to the tournament or you get to the competition and you see a different person, and they're shutting down, or they're not making the adjustments, or they're whatever. And that's very, very normal. It really is. You know, it takes several times to become normal, right? I mean, even this podcast that you do here, right? I'm sure, you know, it's gotten better and better and better each time, right? In the beginning, maybe you forget something and you're not comfortable. I mean, you know, but as time goes on, you get better and better and better. And these guys, the same way, is that we see so many people with really good talent that, as a coach, a good coach or instructor, you try to see if you can get those guys to do what they do in the gym when they're comfortable, at their best, out there in front of people, right? And the only difference between the two, honestly, is that when you go out there's lights, there's all kinds of stuff around you, but other than that, it's still the same thing.
Yeah.
It's just that we dress these images all around us and let these images become part of what we're doing out there. So you got to figure out how to bring that down.
And that, I was gonna say, maybe it's who can handle better all those lights, the crowd, the judges, the ref, and the stress or anxiety of perform. Because as you said, I mean, both are prepared the same. It's just how do you handle being on the stage, which is for everybody who says, "Oh, okay." I mean, it's just they're fighters. It's not only fight; it's make the cut. Or I mean, the weight, and for me, we talk before and after my perform. I couldn't sleep for 24 hours, Professor. After my match, I couldn't sleep at all. I told you straight. I mean, when I went to practice, I didn't sleep because it's another reaction of your body to something for me new. Like, oh my God. I mean, all my adrenaline, the adrenaline of have the medal and to being exposed. I mean, like, wow, what about if I lose? I mean, it's something that you say, I mean, it doesn't matter. It would be happy to say it doesn't matter, but it matters.
No,
And
it's true.
you can
Yeah.
you can move it if you want,
Yeah.
but as much as you want to remove it, it means for the human being to get the score or the result that you expect. Maybe you're going already with the lose, but really deep.
Yeah,
You
no,
wanted to win.
and everybody's like that. Honestly, I mean, we tell you guys that, but the reality is, like you just said, is like it does matter, and it doesn't matter to the fact that it's going to change your life. But what
Yeah.
it does matter is that you want to do better. Your own mind is telling everybody that. I'm not a loser. And like I used to joke to you guys, I said, well, nobody's going to go to HEB and talk about you tomorrow. They're going to see you at HEB and go, point at you and go, hell, that's him. He lost that tournament yesterday. That's not the way it works, you know.
Yeah.
So but at the same time, it's all about what? Self-development, right?
Yeah.
And that's why it matters.
Yeah.
And it is good that it matters
Yeah.
because it does matter.
Yeah.
If it doesn't matter, you wouldn't be doing it.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't be trying to improve. So it does matter
Yeah.
to a certain point, right? And I think that is important at the same time. I mean, like, you know, I use Jason a lot for examples, but you know, he's won a lot, but he's lost a lot. And you know, and I've seen some of the most devastating losses that he's had out of just making some not good choices, maybe sometimes, or just failing to recognize something that was happening, and it helped. But I always used to tell him, man, in his younger days, I would tell him that, hey, don't forget how you feel. Don't forget what happened. You know, and I don't tell him this right away during a loss. I tell him I give a couple of days or whatever, but I tell him because I knew that in the future he would have students and these examples would be carried over, just like you. Like, you know, you're a very strong blue belt now, and you're going to go on to your journey. You're going to be good at this, but one day you're going to have somebody, I'm going to tell you, hey, Beto, go coach him in the corner, or go help him out, or he's going to get ready for a tournament. You're going to tell him, bro, you're going to feel like this, and you're going to know why. You have the wisdom from your experience, right? And that's what's so important, right?
Yeah.
And this is why I used to tell Jason all the times, you know, it's like, you know, I know you don't want to hear this, and like, you know, I mean, and Jason lost some really good fights, and he's won some super big fights, and he's had both. He knows both ways, but I have never seen him accept a loss, just go, okay, I'm okay with that, you know, like, and nobody's going, that's, even though we sit here, we say that back and forth, I've never seen him accept that, you know, you'll see him on the podium, or you'll see him on stage, and he'll congratulate the other guy, and say, you know, that's cool with the referee, but behind doors, bro, he's kicking chairs, he's freaking pissed, man. You guys train with him. You see when he gets in mode of competition mode.
Oh my God,
that's like
a machine.
Yes, you know, and I groomed him that way, and I told him, you know, that's the way he has to be. You know, like,
It's your fault.
well, you know,
No,
even sometimes, like when he was doing MMA fights, I used to tell him, you know, he'd walk up to the stage, and you know, the weigh-ins, and they face off, and he's grinning, he's shaking hands. He's always been a martial artist, very respectful, very everything. But I used to tell him, man, you have to be more selfish. You got one last chance to get in this guy's head, and you can't be a nice guy about it. And one day, he did a fight, and he shook the high guy, and and he won the fight, whatever. But it was really irritating to me, and it bugged me in my mind for weeks, right? So one night, it just finally hit me, and he was training, getting ready for another fight, and I pulled him in the kitchen, and me and him, I went at him pretty hard, and I hit him, you know, and I told him, man, you need to start fucking grinning and quit. I said, quit being such a nice guy. I said, you need to you could die in that cage. I said, somebody could hit you, you don't know. I said, quit treating these guys like they're your friends. They're not your friends. They're gonna they better beat your ass. I said, you need to step up. I said, I got him hard, right? And I was like, you know, so he had to click it off, right? So from there on, when he would go face off with somebody, he would get hard face and get right in their face and like, you know, and that changed from that point, you know, and And I think it's good. I mean, that's everybody. I tell everybody, just like I told you before also, is that, and I told, the girls that compete a lot, like Danielle, Vanessa, Ashley and all those, when they were competing, I would tell them too, when y'all come to the gym, you got to be selfish. You got to come, that's the one drawback to a fighter is that, they have to be selfish. When they come in there, everything's about you and not nobody else. It's not that you want to hurt them or you're better than anybody, but you got to focus on yourself. And you got to, get in this mindset that your attitude is that I'm better than you. I can beat you. I'm here. I'm the best. Everybody else is here for you, only for you. That's how selfish you have to be about
Yeah.
And it's a hard one, especially when you're an instructor, because you have to try to balance both worlds, In Jason's case, it was really hard because he's an instructor. And you watch him walk around with that face, that's hard. He's going to teach a class. And then you're asking him to back off of that. And then you're asking him to go over here to put it back on, to get ready to fight. So, it's a hard balance.
Yeah.
But I will tell you this, that for anybody that wants to be an instructor one day, you need all those worlds at the same time.
Yeah.
Because maybe you're a competitor right now and you're working your way up. And if you're just a competitor and you never work on teaching or doing anything, the day you stop competing, you have to relearn. You have to learn how to teach. You learn how to talk to people. Why not get the balance now? Why not start developing now? But so that at the end, when you do become that instructor, that you'll be able to balance, work with kids, work with adults. Because, everybody says that, jiu-jitsu is starting to make money and it's getting big, but it's not. It's just a handful, man. It's like, it's a very difficult martial art because it's boring. Even for us that like it and love it, when we watch it, it can be boring.
Yeah.
Especially with some of the fighters, right? The competitors, right? It's boring. It's a very boring. So if you're going to make money at this, and you want to run, the best way probably is to run a school, how to have a good school and figure out how you're going to do it. But just competing wise,
you're not going to make it.
You're not going to make it. It's fun. It's a great way to think about it. It's a good challenge. Competition. It's a good self-development.
Yeah.
I will say that. I'll be honest, when you started competing or getting ready to compete, your game went way up, levels up. You might not think so in the beginning, but everybody in the gym knew it. Everybody saw that you were going up and that your mindset changed, the way your attitude was, everything. And I remember James Molina, he came back and James is good, man. James is good.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah, he's really good. So he goes, that's what's gotten really good. And I let him, I thought I was going to be able to just say, man, he just did this or did that to me. And I was like, yeah, he's been working, bro. No, he's gotten good, man. He's gotten good. He's like, well, when's he going to get his blue belt? That's when you know you got it. That when you're a white belt and they're asking, when's he going to be a blue belt?
Yeah. I told Jason, I could be another year with a white belt because, it feels good and not the pressure.
The one thing is that everybody's thinks that you guys are still developing, figuring out stuff as you come along, and you're going to learn a lot. You're going to start to understand more than anything, and you learn some for sure. But everybody thinks, when he gets to white, I can't wait till I get to black belt, right? And I'll be honest with you, and people have said this. I'm not the first to say it, but really, when you get to black belt, you're just now starting to understand what's really how to learn.
Yes.
You're really learning how to learn.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
Whereas before you're learning, you think you're going, and then you get to that black belt and everybody thinks, he's the best and this and that. No, it just means that he's just figured out now how to learn, how to really fix these things, how to really figure it out. And it still goes on. Here I am. I've been a black belt now, 15, 19, 14, 36, 9, 14, 15, 16, 17. I think 17 years, something like that, 17, 18 years. So next year, I get my 5th degree. Supposedly, I'll be a 5th degree, right? So it's about 19 years as a black belt. And I'm still learning, bro. And the thing is that, some guys can go out there and go, he's a black belt, he knows this or he knows that. Man, I'll be honest with you, a lot of times, we don't know nothing, man. When you start looking at certain positions and you start looking at things, you realize, man, I really don't know nothing, man. I was like, there's so much to this.
Yeah.
And it's at jiu-jitsu level especially, and if you're humble enough and you recognize you'll go that direction. But if you don't, you'll play like, I think the difficult part about today is that, there's jiu-jitsu is jiu-jitsu regardless. If you have timing, spacing, leverage, that's jiu-jitsu, right? But today you see these young guys that are so athletic, and they're doing this, they're doing that, and everybody's trying to find their new way, their new knack about why their jiu-jitsu is better than everybody else's and what they're doing. And there is no way to just differentiate that other than that bring other people down. Mm-hmm. So they start talking about other martial arts, other black belts saying, oh, if you don't do it like this, or belts don't matter, and this and that. And so they find ways to tear other people up. Because that's the only way you can do things, right? If you can't find a way to elevate yourself, you bring somebody else down.
Yeah.
And that's what you're seeing a lot today, It's unfortunate, right? But like I tell some of the guys and some of the other guys, I tell them, just stay on your own road, man. Just stay narrow, stay focused on what you're doing and going straight forward, right? And, the jiu-jitsu will speak for itself, and your longevity will stay there. These other people, they'll go and come, and that's what we try to do with our students. I mean, just trying to keep everybody on the same road, and it's, everybody's different, man, and that's the beauty of it too. Is that right? Your body type, your mentality, whether you're a guy, your girl,
the time that you invest in this. I mean, maybe one put 2-3 hours a week, but gives the best 2-3 hours a week. Another one's give.
So let me ask you this then. Like we just said, what is the most you think you have found about yourself right now doing jiu-jitsu?
It's not something good because, Professor Jason told me you did it at the right time. That I started too late, that I love it. And I knew it, but I didn't know that much. And it's something that I maybe now gonna stay forever. For me, something that I knew I love it, but I didn't know how much until I have introduced it. Like, this is not only as a fan, but as a practitioner as well.
So before we were making coffee, we were talking about how you were in school, right? And that, like, if you had it then, were you ready for it?
I don't know.
No, that's probably going to be the answer.
Yes.
And this is why everybody says, I wish I was younger. I would have started. Even if you had gotten it, it wouldn't have been no good to you. You would have dumped it. You would have moved it to the side. And so it came in your life at the right time, and just that's like for everybody. That's for everybody. You can go back and go wish and this. No, forget about that. Be in the now. Take it for what it's worth, and grow with it. And it benefits you way better than if you had started way back then and you dumped it to the side. Then you want to come back, or you never come back. You say, oh, it's not for me. Because you got that mindset thinking it's not for me,
Maybe you're right, because I go back in time and I say, okay, let's say 20 years ago, I didn't have money. First, I didn't have time. I had a newborn that I need to go back to work, go work in the weekends, and go back home, to be with the family, and because it was the only time that I had. So I couldn't invest it in another thing for me. So I think 15 years ago, I was raising them. They were just starting doing sports, school. 10 years ago, I was busy driving, being a taxi, taking them to tournaments, basketball tournaments, baseball tournaments. So, maybe you're right. Maybe it was the right time.
Yeah.
I think it was the right time.
It's for a lot of people, and I think the best part about this, and being where we're at, and we got a couple guys, some of your teammates, they're 35, 40s, 45 years old, right? And it's hit them just right in their lifetime where they're starting to fix themselves. A lot of people, like I tell people, don't wait till you're my age, 60, 70 years old, and go, oh, I got to fix my health now. You spend all this money to get here, and now you're going to spend all that money on your health to go back, right? Why not do it now? So that you can enjoy that money when you get there. And everybody, they'll say yes. And I know a lot of guys that are very rich and their health is very poor, and now they're spending all their money on their health, and they're not going to be able to enjoy the other part. Right? So it goes and comes, I guess, in the different parts of our lives. Trying to develop this, but I started this at a very young age. I was pretty fortunate, but part of it was my environment. I come from a rough neighborhood. Coming up.
But now that you say that, Professor, I wanted to make an official introduction. You are my professor, Professor Joe Soliz, my friend, the owner and professor as well of the Texas Coast MMA. How do you start it? Where are you coming from?
Well, I'm gonna go way back for a second.
Okay. Yeah, sure.
I'm gonna take it all the way back to my dad. Supposedly my dad, he's telling us that my dad went to prison, and many years ago, and before that, he used to work on farms, and they used to fight the fighters. You know, sometimes the farmers would get together. He told us, and they would fights at night, right? So fast forward, he has his own family now, right? And my brothers, I have 6 brothers. I'm 7, and 3 sisters. And my dad, when we would get mad or fight, you know, we had these big old Everlast boxing gloves, and my brothers, we would get in the backyard and we would punch each other and fight with each other, right?
I don't think they wear 24 ounces gloves, right?
No, they were just, you know, but we're little kids, right?
Yes.
And we were going to hurt each other with them.
Yeah,
things.
yeah.
So, but anyways, we used to do that, right? And so like, that was our, you know, our deal. So that, you know, when you have brothers, you're always fighting all the time.
Sure, yeah.
And then as time went on, you know, we started to learn how to box better and do stuff, you know, not that we were that good at it anyways, but when I was around 14 or 15 years old, you know, I remember having you know, being pretty good at the boxing, you know, it's like, and I remember we used to have a big ditch in front of our house, and we used to always box the kids in the neighborhood, and that was our ring, right? And the kids would come by and after school, and we'd hold the gloves to los pones, you know, put them on, put them on. And
which was this in Victoria or
this is in El Campo, where I grew up in El Campo. And so like we would box, right? And one day I remember boxing this one kid, and he got mad, you know. He went home and he told his dad that me and my brother jumped him, right? And so like he came back with his dad, and so my dad came out, and you know, and I thought, oh man, they're gonna fight my dad. And instead, my dad said, no, you put the gloves on, let him put the gloves on, the man, right? And I boxed up the dad.
The dad.
And you know, I beat him, right? So like we left it at that, right? And that was pretty much it, right? But you know, that was my first kind of, you know, love of martial arts, I would call it. And then finally I got into I was about 15 years old. And I started in a regular boxing class, and there were some karate guys that were around the neighborhood, not in our neighborhood, but because I lived in an all-black neighborhood, right? And there was a guy named Vernon Fryer, and he was a karate guy, and he was good at judo and throwing. Man, we used to watch him kick over the mailboxes and stuff like that, and it was cool, right? So I got in there with it. That's my first start when I was like 15 years old, starting that. And then from there on, I developed and kept doing karate. You know, I did karate for 4 or 5 years, and then eventually I got with a friend named Roland Gomez, and he was a real badass. You know, I mean, he was like legit. And
boxing?
You know, he was karate. You know, he did freestyle. You know, he started traditional with Vernon also, but then eventually he got really good and went on his own and just kind of, he was really good at this, right? Good kicking and so forth. And I had been traveling around, you know, for a couple of years, playing basketball a lot, and then coming back and doing the karate thing. But when I got with him, I realized, man, this guy can fight, and he can use the techniques that were taught, like side kicks, round kicks, back fists, and he would use it in real confrontations, right? Sure. And I saw him do a couple of challenge matches in the gym where these guys, because our gym that we had was in a community center in an all-black neighborhood, right? And so Mexicans and blacks, right? And people would walk in there, and they would like try to challenge him and like want to fight with him, and he'd take them on, and boom, it didn't last but seconds, right? And I said, this is the guy I need to be with, right? So I started with him, and he became my compadre, my best friend, you know, and I actually named my son after him, Jason, you know, Jason Rowland, you know. But he became my best friend, and to this day he still is. We're very good friends, but he opened my eyes to, like, you know, we knew about Bruce Lee.
Sure.
But we didn't know enough about him, but he knew him even better. And so we'd have these long conversations about reality fighting, what worked, what didn't work. And, you know, we started trying to discover how to, you know, we would sit at night sometimes, you know, we'd have these long drinks and drinking beer, and we would sit down and we would break bottles and figure out which bottles would break better than other bottles, you know, and stuff like that, you know. So if we got into a real bar fight or something, we experiment with so many things, you know, that we were taught. And then, you know, as time went on, we started hearing about these guys called the Jeet Kune Do guys, who were left behind by Bruce Lee after Bruce Lee passed away. And we started trying to connect with these guys, and he was the first one to do it. And then he went on and he learned from a guy by the name Paul Vunak, and Paul, and later on became one of my instructors, right? And so we started developing a lot of stuff with those guys, and we learned about, you know, everything from trapping, weapons, you know, knife fight, all this stuff that the Jeet Kune Do Kali brought in. And this went on for years. I studied, and then I started traveling around with them. doing seminars, and we were working with different special op units, military, police, all kinds of stuff like that. And
What are your parents said whenever you start, like, because it was the same, it was that day when you fight the dad, that your own dad knew how good you were with the gloves and fighting, or he knew already this guy?
no, I'll be honest with you. My dad was not a big part of my life, growing up. My dad traveled a lot. He worked, construction, and he was gone, in that time, in esos tiempos, and that, the men didn't stick around much,
Sure.
I mean, my dad was my dad, but, he drank a lot, and he was always on the go. My mom was 100% mom, she took care of everything. My mom worked 2 jobs, 3 jobs sometimes.
Yeah.
She was a seamstress. She took care of us, she did a lot of things for my mom. She's like everything to us,
Sure.
But that's how we grew up. And so, I did a lot of sports in school. In high school, played basketball, track. I did everything.
I've just heard that you were good at basketball.
And I was good at it. Yeah, I was good at it.
Yes.
But my parents never saw me play. They never came to see me play. They didn't understand it. Grades were not important. My dad thought that, hey, if you graduate, man, you did something. If you get a job, driving a backhoe or something, man, you're making it. He thought, if my sister works at a store, man, we made it. So that was a different time, man. It was a whole different time. But I will say that, like, we all my brothers, all of us became really good hard workers. I can't say that anything bad about any of my brothers and sisters, that they were lazy or didn't. They all had ambition. We all pushed forward and to do our things, right. And I think even today it's the same thing. But going forward with that, I think that the people that we associate with us at the time when we're coming up, they helped develop like. I went in my time when I was traveling, doing all this, some of these seminars, still learning. I was like, I didn't have money. I did not have money, and I will tell you that my wife, she did a lot to make sure that I got a chance to experience it. This is now, I got to experience more of this after I got married. I got married at a very young age. At 17, I got married.
Oh my God!
Yeah, I was 17 when I got married, and and we'll be married 48 years, that I've been with my wife. She was my high school sweetheart.
And one of the things from our Latino way to do it is because they always think our wife is pregnant. In your case, she wasn't pregnant. Did you just want to get together?
Right. I didn't have a kid for 5 years.
I remember you mentioned that. I forgot the age. I think it was 17. Yeah. But wow,
we traveled, we did all this stuff, and I was playing basketball, doing martial arts.
And she knew you already were into martial arts.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we just didn't have the money, but we were traveling, and we just figured that, hey, if we stick to get out there about 5 years and figure out if it was meant to be or not.
Sure.
That's why we didn't want to have no kids. That way, if she decided she didn't want to be with me anymore, or did, we could go or different ways, I guess. So.
And you were trying to pursue a professional career fighting, and she knew that, or how was everything going?
No, my goal honestly was I wanted to play basketball, and I started playing. I played a lot of basketball. I never played college basketball, but I played some semi-pro ball. But I was never. I thought I was really good, right? But when I moved to Vegas, I got a team. They put me on the team, and I made it, and I was playing.
Playing basketball, you moved to Vegas.
Yeah, I was traveling around, and I was in Vegas for a little while, and I realized I sat the bench a lot. Mostly, I sat the bench a lot. And and the only time I got to replay was at practice. And at practice, I realized that they just used me to help out the floor, which is okay. I knew it was part of the process, but I come to the realization that sitting the bench a lot, that these guys were really good, and they were bigger, and I was smaller. And although I played okay, but I wasn't nowhere near the level of these guys. Right?
Yeah.
And so I was doing more. And then that one day after a game, I just said, "Hey, I'm calling it quits. I'm done. I'm not going to do this anymore." And
how old were you back then?
I was probably 24, 25 years old, something like that. Yeah. And I just went the martial arts route, and I just started training. And she's trained with me too. She did a karate tournament. She fought. She competed. My wife, yeah.
Really?
Yeah, she fought.
Oh my God, how is this bad? I mean, I never thought. I don't see her like that.
Yeah, she got in a tournament. She fought another
Be careful
girl.
whoever goes into that door.
Yeah, she competed and she trained as well, you know. Yeah, she understood and she understands everything that we do. I mean, Jason,
Yes.
she understands everything. She understands the techniques. She understands the hard work, the discipline, all that stuff that goes into it, right? But, you know, as time went on, you know, I used to have conversations with her at night that, man, these people are doing this and that. And she says, well, why don't you go do it? And I said, we don't have the money. We'll find a way to do it, you know, whatever. And she would, you know.
push you.
Yeah, yeah. It's like I would go places without her, you know, and I don't know many wives or women, period, that would allow your husband to go somewhere for a week or 2 weeks and be gone. And they're spending the money and you're, you know. And it was difficult. I'm not going to lie. I mean, it wasn't like I was living in hotels and eating good food. I slept in the car many nights. I slept on the mats, eating beanie weenies and or whatever it took, right, to be out there to get what we got and then come back, you know. And then, you know, I even had friends like my friend Roland, the guy that he would give me money sometimes, you know, because he knew I wanted to go train it. And I'd bring the information back. And I had other people that were supporting me, you know. I spent 2 weeks in the Smoky Mountains at a big camp they had. First time they had Muay Thai. And I was, you know, they had, I think, like 60, 70 guys out there that were trying out at the Muay Thai camp, part of the JKD camp. And they told everybody, you know, you get a certification, but you have to come every day, twice a day for the camp. And there was like 68 or 70 of us. And you have to come to every session if you're going to get the certification, right? So like for the 2 weeks, right? And it was hard. I mean, we would do 20, 30 rounds, man. And so like, and run a mile, come back, you know, it was, your legs are all beat up and everything, right? And so I told the,
you say it was Muay Thai, right?
just straight Muay Thai, kicking legs, elbow, yeah.
And there's they're not used to be the pads.
Yeah, there was no shin pads yet. Shin pads hadn't been come around yet. We hadn't.
It was straight shin to shin.
The best we had was soccer shin pads or some. I don't know.
Spineyetas, what they call it.
Yeah, very simple stuff. It wasn't nothing like that. But I didn't see anybody with those things on out there. And so we were out there, like, you know, and we would do these. And at the end of the 2 weeks, you know, by the second week, we were down to about half of the people. We had maybe 25, 30 people. And those weren't even going to make it all the way. They were just showing up to class to be part of the class. And at the end, there was only like 8 of us that got the certification that were finished. I was one of them that finished from that first week all the way to that second week to get the certification. And it was very, very, very hard. And I was like, you know, sitting out in the Smoky Mountain, the river, in the cold water, hitting your legs at night, you know, just to, you know, and it was tough. Get up the next morning, do it. And you were doing this at 6 a.m, at noon, and then late at night. It was 3 days. I mean, three times a day for 2 weeks.
And then when you make the switch from basketball, when you say you figured out, okay, this is not the path that I wanted to go. I mean, there's nowhere to go here. What was the goal then? Whenever you were going to these seminars or to these certifications or trainings, where you start pursuing fighter career, or what was the goal?
No, it wasn't at all. I mean, I didn't even see that because I was busy. We had been, my wife, we had been married 5 years, so we stopped traveling, and she went home and we decided we were going to have one, right? And have our first baby. So I said, so then I had to go to work. And so I went to work offshore for the next 2 years, 3 years. I worked offshore, gone 2 weeks, come back, you know, or work on the oil rigs, be gone 12 hours a day, and then come home and teach class.
Really? Yeah. Really hard as well, yeah.
Yeah. People don't realize, like, you know, that, you know, these guys today, you know, they get 8-hour shifts, they come home, we work 12 hours in the oil field, you know. What you don't realize is that you're working in salt water in the woods, hot, and you drive an hour there, work 12 hours, drive an hour there, drive an hour back, and then you get home about 7:30, 8 o'clock at night, and the guys are waiting in the garage or outside to get ready to teach class, and I go take a shower, run out there, and I teach till 10, then go back and do it again, you know. And that went on for, I don't know, 15, 20 years like that. You know, the goal was never to become a world champion. The goal was never to fight.
But you were thinking more as a teach?
No, I was more that I just enjoyed the lifestyle of it, and it started very early. I worked out every day. Me and my wife, we went out dancing or go somewhere. I had to work out first. I take her anywhere she wants to go, but I had to work out first. That was priority. She knew it.
Yeah.
And so, like, that was priority. And be honest, I never thought about having a big school. I never thought about, you know, having world champions under me. Nothing like that. Nothing like that. It was just about training And I loved the lifestyle of doing that and sparring and doing that. And then if a competition came around, cool, I would work really hard to do it. But in my mind, I never thought about being a world champion or anything like that. And it just never crossed my mind, to be honest with you. And I'd see it out there, and I'd spar with a lot of guys that are really good, like my friend Roland, man. I mean, this guy, if he really, and he worked at a regular job too, if this guy really wanted to be, he definitely would have been a world champion, no doubt about it. You know, I saw him train with some world champions, and they acknowledged him how good he was, you know, and where you been, where did you guys come from, you know. But you know, we never did that. That wasn't in our deal. It was just a lifestyle.
And I ask you because I mean, back then, I don't think even exists the term MMA, mixed martial artists. It was just, I mean, like you do karate or judo, but they now use it as if it was back then. But you already were doing it.
Yes, we were doing it. We call it cross training or CrossFit. That's what it's funny, but
yes,
it's so. I mean, that was a term that we used back then. Me and my friend Roland, we cross train, or you know, we'd be CrossFit because we would do a lot of different stuff. Like you see all these, you know, exercise like the CrossFit people, all these different exercises. We were doing that way back before. That's how we kept in shape. You know, we never stayed on any bench press and get big. We did a bunch of explosive exercise, jumping rope, 10 seconds, 30 seconds, run as fast as we could. We had all, and people would look at us and probably thought we were stupid doing what we were doing, right? But we were way ahead of our time, you know. Plow jumping, the way they jump on those boxes, that we were doing that way before. We would do that for like interval seconds, come down, do them push-ups real fast. We'd grab each other, kick each other as fast as we could, grab each other, start pummeling each other. We didn't even know anything about grappling just yet, but as the time went on, I think my first introduction with grappling was with the Jeet Kune Do people, because I had a friend of mine that was one of the students of Bruce Lee, also was Larry Hartzell. And he was already doing a lot of catch-as-can wrestling, a lot of wrestling, just basic wrestling. He was doing a lot of sambo stuff, a lot of shoot fighting type of stuff, and Japanese fighting. That's how I learned. I mean, so for me, when we got into jiu-jitsu, that was the missing link for the Jeet Kune Do people. I think it was that it wasn't the techniques, because we knew arm bars, we knew wrist locks, we knew guillotines, we knew all the submissions. We just didn't stay on the ground, and we didn't let it continue. You know, it didn't just entwine like everything else that we see today, right? But back then it was just one thing. You stop, you take the guy down, you do your mission, and you submit him, and then you get back up and you start again. And that was judo fighting, you know. And we had a chance to work with a lot of professional people like that, you know, in my time. So.
But you went to tournaments, right? I mean, like boxing, I guess. You did some other different tournaments. How was you perform?
I think my first tournaments were like basic karate, and then I got into it more. There was another art or competition they call sabaki.
Okay.
And sabaki would allow you to, just like MMA, except punching to the head. You could kick to the head, but you couldn't, and you could take the guy down, you know, and then it would stop. You had to do what you're going to do for 10, 15 seconds, then you had to get back up where they stand you back up. But it was full contact all the way. And then we started doing full contact karate, you know, and so I fought in some the tournaments like that, and I never got a chance to actually do the like professional for like around here for boxing. I did a lot of boxing, amateur wise. I won golden gloves.
You won the golden gloves.
I won golden gloves.
And did you ever? I mean, or someone came to you and say, "Hey, why don't we go to the next level? Why don't we go professional?" Someone came to you, or did you think about it?
Karate didn't look that way back then. You know, the best you could do was, you know, the full contact karate, but it wasn't around here. You had to spend the money for it, and so I didn't have it. But amateur boxing was good, and boxing looked good for me, so I did, and it was around it, so I did the amateur boxing. I think I had like 8 fights as an amateur, but when I won the golden gloves, and then I think I realized how good I could be when I fought this kid. He had like 57 fights, and I didn't have no fights. And I beat him pretty easily, right? And but it was because I already had martial arts experience. I felt like I knew how to strike, and I was comfortable, right? And then, so once I did that, and I won the golden gloves, that night I realized the guy came up, a promoter came up to me and said, "Hey, I want to sign you," you know, after I won the golden gloves. And I said, "Oh, thank you," you know, and I left it alone. I went back and I thought about it, and I said, "Nah, I don't want to be a boxer.
Really?
I want to be a martial artist. I want to be known as a martial, not just a boxer."
And did you already put the name martial artist? I mean, did you already figure it out? I mean, you want to mix it up, everything.
Yes. Yes, I was already doing that. Everybody knew I was already doing the Muay Thai, everything. So for me, the boxing part it wasn't hard. It was pretty easy actually, and I enjoyed it a lot. And so I went. But even then, I went to Florida, and I was really good at it. So like I trained with the USA boxing team that was there for a little while, and then the Cuban national team came along, and they were there, and I was working with a lot of Cuban fighters as well. And I worked construction for a little while there, and in the days it would rain, I would go there and they would pay me $50 to $100 to spar with everybody, right? And I was with 50, 60 rounds. Now, don't think I was doing 3-minute rounds everyone, but I would go with little kids, big guys, professional, whatever. But I was good enough where I knew how to fight, where I could take care of them.
And take care of you as well.
Yeah, and at the same time, right? And so it was pretty easy. Like, so I do 1 minute here, 2 minutes here, 3 minutes. But when I got with the professionals, and I was sparring some heavy rounds with them, 5 or 6, they paid me a little bit more, but I was able to throw down really good with them, and I got really good. I got to really comfortable sparring a lot, and I liked to spar without the headgear, and they would warn me, hey, you need to put the headgear on. I was like, okay, And it was more because the other guys would come into you to headbutt you by accident, right? Yeah. But I got really comfortable at it, and so that's where I really got good, doing that, sparring a lot like that. And, that was, again, you're talking about professionals, amateurs, everywhere, all the way up. And now today, even in class, right, I still have fun. I like to do it, and it's fun.
Did you have the chance to spar with someone who made it all the way to a professional level with a success career? I mean, do you remember anyone on your spar time when they were stuck?
Yeah, I did the Ayala, some of the Ayala guys, brothers from San Antonio, that are known. I went against. I have my own compadre that I went with. His name is Castillo, Sylvester Castillo. Okay. He fought Boom Boom Johnson. He fought a lot of guys from the Bronx gym, the Emmanuel Stewart's fighters. There was. I mean, there's probably some more. I just can't remember right off the bat. Yeah. But there was. What's his name? I can't think of his name from here out of Houston as well. He was a winner too, champion. I just can't remember his name right now, but yeah, there was a few of them. I mean, that I went to. Yeah.
But it was for you boxing, not something that it was like impressed. Like, okay, I want to stick here. It was more. Yeah. Nah, this is just something.
My guy that I enjoyed watching and want to be like was Bruce Lee. Just like every other kid, I wanted to be good like that, fast kicks, moving, And I guess everybody's kind of idol guy that you want to be, right? But yeah, as much as I love boxing, and Julio Chavez was probably my one of my best guys ever that I enjoyed watching, but I'll be honest, I just didn't. I don't know why, but it's funny. You asking me this right now, and I think about it now, is that I never even thought about why I never chose to go those routes. But I know that I wanted to be a martial artist. I wanted to be well-rounded. Now, today, when you tell people say martial arts, they think just on the physical end, right?
Yeah, exactly,
But a martial arts is so much more, right? He's like his character, who he is, how he conducts himself, And I hold that very, very high to myself, to everybody, that if you're going to be a martial artist, careful how you speak in front of children, be careful how you speak in front of ladies, and, how you conduct, how you structure. And I hope I set a good example for everybody in that manner. I'm not perfect by any means, and I haven't always been this way. I've gotten better as the years have gone on, but, I was just like any other young guy at 20, 21 years old, want to kick everybody's ass, and I ain't scared of you, and, talk shit to everybody. Like, I was that guy too,
Do you think in going back, when you say your dad was part of a farmer and they used to fight, that came from your connection with the fighting or the martial artists, because you seen okay, this is something that I like to, or I seen my dad as a tough guy and I wanted to be and learn that way, or it's not?
I don't think so. I think it was. I will say this: look, I don't think my dad had anything to really do with that part. I mean, maybe, I don't know, but I don't think so. I think the environment kind of dictated a lot of that, because I came back from a hard environment. When I think I was like 10, 11 years old, I saw my uncle stab another man in front of my house for the first time, and the guy lay in the ditch, and my uncle kick him, and me and my brother ran over there to go to see if he was dead or not, right? And then come back, right? So like, coming up in that type of environment, and we used to see fights all the time. And I grew up, in an all-black neighborhood, having fight with guys all the time. And today, some of those guys are my best friends, right? They're good friends. I know them very well. But growing up in that environment, that was normal for us. When people say that people get bullied today, I think it's a bad deal, but at the same time, it's a good deal. You need it.
Yeah.
I mean, I hate to say it, but, parents jump in too soon. I think sometimes just, they don't want their kid, pushed around. But it's okay. Let the kid find himself, because it happened to us a lot. It happened a lot,
And maybe now it's a different bully, unfortunately, because if as anything else, it's on social media, and maybe they cannot deal with that, and it's something that us as a parents, we need to learn how to use it. How soon you wanted to give that kind of environment to your kid.
See, I think that's 100% right. But the other part, what we don't give our kids early on is how to handle that. And that's the martial arts come into that point right there, is that if you give your kids martial arts to let them build their confidence coming in, so that way when that does hit them, they'll have something to counter it back with, that they believe in themselves, they understand these situations can happen, like jiu-jitsu, right? A lot of people say, teach your kids self-defense, teach them confidence, teach them respect. But if you go to the gyms, how do you get confidence? How does a martial arts, some of these jiu-jitsu gyms, you're telling these parents, you're going to teach them confidence. How do you teach confidence?
With knowledge.
Yeah, but it takes time, right? But are you going to teach them through a sweep? Are you going to teach them through a throw? That's not going to give them confidence, right? But trying to get them to understand that being on the bottom, getting smashed, that I'm okay. This is the worst thing that can happen to me. Okay, I can get out of this, and I'm being taught how to get out. And when you get out, oh man, you survived, right? And so teaching a kid how to get confidence, and then that way when they are bullied, and they get that, they have that balance. Right now, the bully side has the balance all the way this way, right? And so that's what's happening right now. And so they don't have anything to counter it back with. So you have to give them something to counter. Some people think that it's only physical, that you have to counter the bully physical, but it really starts mentally all the way from the beginning. I mean, I think you and I had this conversation, and I have with the girls too, is that I think the girls are the ones that need it the most, just because a lot of times they're much more personal, more emotional. They take everything very personal, right? So I think any parent should put their daughter for at least a year, minimum 2 years. Your kid has to learn some martial arts and learn how to swim. Because those are two things that
you're not going
to be around. Yeah, one day you're not going to be around. Your kid's going to want to run and jump in the water just like every other kid. Or you're not going to be around, and some people are going to be talking smack to him. Or one late night she's going to be up and somebody's saying something stupid to him. Right? Those two things are for sure going to happen. Parents are willing to spend hundreds of dollars to take your kid to Disneyland, take your kid to dancing. They spend all this money to keep them busy, to have them do something. But why wouldn't you spend money on trying to build your confidence of your kid so that they don't have to endure that? You know why? Because they don't realize it sometimes. They don't see it that way, right? It's not that it's not important, but not every parent is explained that way, right? And you have so many young parents, but they understand that they don't want their kid treated this way, but they don't understand that there's something over here for them, in order to get that. And they don't realize until they need it, So all of a sudden, your kid's over here. So why not start putting your kid, you're willing to put your kid in baseball, you're willing to run into 3 different programs, but the one program that you really need to spend some time with, you don't spend 0 time. And their mental, you're willing to take them to the dentist on a regular basis, really do physicals and stuff. But what about the mind? What do we do to maintain physically work the mind, right? And I think that's something we miss out on,
And we that's what we want as a parents. To give it something better. But I remember a guy. It was a great friend. He was one of the international BPs in Citgo. He came from nothing. He was from Venezuela, and this guy told me the same way as you. I owe everything to my mom. She raised us as a single mom, and I was the BP of Citgo International, and it just came from adversity. So we sometimes wanted to skip the pain for our kids,
Sure.
which is not bad. We were talking about in our first conversation before we officially started how much we want the win, but we learn so much from the struggle, from the hard situations. We need to put our kids sometimes, if economically, if the environment is so cool to them because we made it, and it's hard to put them in a neighborhood where it's maybe everybody's fighting. Okay, we create then the situations, place where they're not comfortable. If we wanted to escape for our kids, hard environment, hard situations, we're not helping them.
My son Jason, when he was like 12 or 13, he was already boxing, and we were in a nice, as time goes on, we were already in a nice gym where I was teaching at here in Houston, right? And he was doing good, and I'm watching them, they're training and so forth, and I thought to myself, man, he's too sheltered here. It's the air conditioning's nice. He's in a nice environment. Everybody smells good. All the kids look nice, and he's doing his thing, right? And I told him, I said, next week we're going to a real boxing gym. I'm going to take you where the guys fight. So I thought to myself, and Patricia, she says, "Are you going to take him to the?" I said, "Yep, I'm taking him to a real boxing gym." So I took him to a real barrio boxing gym where we walk in. It's hot. It's smelly. The kids walking around there, 9, 10 years old, 15 years old, and they got little black eyes. They got hard faces, right? Done descalzos, they're barefooted, some of them, and they got these old gloves on and stuff, and old headgear and stuff, right? And I walk in, and I tell him, I want you to look at all these little kids' face. When we walked in, I said, well, look at them. I said, these kids are here because they want to be here. Look how hot it is in here. I said, they're here because they pay $10 a month, and most of them can't afford $10. You see those kids over there cleaning the walls, cleaning the ring. It's like somebody else is paying for them, but they pay their dues by cleaning the gym, right? Mm-hmm. I said, why? So I had him spar with the guys and watch him, and I put him in that environment because I wanted him to see the hardship of being grateful, one, but also the hardship of what some of these kids are trying. And I said, for them, this is what they're going to get, and their hopes is to get out of here, to get something bigger, For some of them, yeah, it will. Some of them will get it first time they'll ever leave the county, go out of town, to go somewhere else, They've never been outside their own little town, and they'll get a chance to just go to Houston, right? Yeah. Or maybe they're Rosenberg, Richmond, where I would take it, and they're just going outside their own little town. I said, but just being in that environment, taking them in there, and let some of those kids put the whooping on him, and just box him up, and just then he realized, oh shit, Then when he went back to the other gym, he had a whole different, respect and humility about what he was doing, right? And, again, this is part of building the character of one individual. And like I said, I think our environments, like I was saying earlier, we were talking, was that growing up in a rough neighborhood and trying to better yourself, and we as parents, we all want better for our kids, and like you were saying, and so when they come up, each generation gets a little bit better because we want our kids to do better, and I think it's good, but I think we got to find that balance. How to, like you were saying, we got to find that balance to get them to struggle a little bit, but be successful. Yeah. But struggle, and it's a hard balance.
Check the boxes. Try to check the boxes. The best way you can, because of course, you wanted to make it better for your kids as well, but at the same time, it's like, okay, I'm not helping them. I was listening to Frank Mir, one clip that he say, if you don't go hard on your partner, your rolling or whatever you're training with, you're not helping him, because he needs to have that kind of pressure. Be hard on him. And sometimes I'm like rolling with friends, and it's like, I don't want to do something that I can hurt him. But I remember that clip, or I remember that quote, and it's like, okay, if they're training to be better, I'm not helping them, and I need to think that as well sometimes on my kids.
Well, let me give you an example which you already know of.
Yeah.
Is that when you were getting ready, and Danielle came over to you and said,
oh my God.
She says, oh, so you're getting ready for the tournament, you're going to compete? You found a whole different Danielle, right?
I didn't know her. I literally didn't know her. I didn't know she was that tough. She's so slim, she's so little, and I'm like, I'm not going to be hard on her. Oh my God. She beat me up. It was like, oh my God, I need to go out of here. And yes, I mean, that's one of the things that a fighter on her level knows too, that you don't need to be the tough guy all the time.
And you don't want to see that person every day.
Exactly.
It's what I tell people sometimes. Some people tell me, like, I had a guy tell me one time during a private, he says, he'd done several privates, and he's gotten pretty good, and he's done group classes. And he came to me one day, and he says, I want you to roll with me, and I want you to submit me as many times as you can. I'm like, really? He says, yeah. Because he thought that because I let him roll and I let him submit me, that he was doing really good. I said, you sure? He says, yeah. So as soon as we touched hands, I grabbed him. Right away, I arm wrenched his arm. Whoop. And he goes, oh. And then I armbar triangle. I probably armbarred him, or I probably, submitted him probably, 15 times and probably less than a minute or something like that, right? And he just stopped and he goes, okay, time out. I get it. He says, I guess I'm not as good as I thought I was going to be. And I started laughing. I said, bro, we roll with you? And I've had other people, see me roll with some people. And I usually try to roll right below. Now, if you're a white belt, I'm rolling right below you.
Yeah.
I don't try to roll at my level, right? And I try to mediate that, right? And I tell everybody, if you're really good, you'll be able to do that. Because some people would see me that I'm like in deep trouble. Somebody's got my back or somebody's choking me out. And then all of a sudden I pop out and I come out. And sometimes I'll tap for them if they do a good job, right? But other times I'll let them struggle with it, and they think I'm in trouble, right? And I tell them, no, I'm just playing their game at their level. So, but probably by the time you get to purple and brown, I mean, there's certain positions that you can play like that. But there's other positions you can't because they're just that good already. But normally the white and the blue, at least you can moderate that pretty good. I think in most cases that, you can have to play at a black belt level or at Jedi level that you're going to, and you learn that.
Yeah.
Danielle shows you that, hey, there are levels to this, and they can, a lot of times the guys, and I tell people, hey, they're being nice to you. They can rape you on the floor if they want to. It's just they're trying to be really good. And
their A game.
Yeah, their A game. Yeah, you don't want to see that A game every night. I promise you will learn a lot about yourself.
Yes. And yes, I mean, this is one of the, I would say, and you tell me, the disciplines that, there's talent on soccer, on baseball. You see kids playing at 14, 15, 16 on a world championship. In martial arts, I don't see that happen that much. Am I wrong, Professor? Or is it something that can happen and I just don't see it?
You see the Rosas kid in the UFC. He's 19, I think now, 18 or 19, something like that, maybe 21. And he came in very young. He's one of the youngest.
Yeah.
So can it be done? Yeah, there it is. There's a good example of it right there. He's at that highest level, right? But how long can you last there?
Sure.
How long can you run that car at 150 miles an hour like that, right? Before he goes down, right?
Yeah.
But I think, like I said, that experience, and it depends to where you want to go with it as well. Like in Jason's case, he's chosen to have a gym and become a very good coach at this, and I think he's doing a great job of it. But at the same time, I think that you'd like to say that I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of really good instructors and coaches, but who can say that they started when Jason started? I mean, Jason was doing this stuff, fighting adults when he was 12, 13, because there were no kids doing what he's doing. He started since he was like born. There's a rumor that he armbarred the doctor that pulled him out of his mouth. But that's how young he started, right?
Yes.
And I got pictures of him doing arm bars on me as a little kid, holding my arm like this, right? All the way down. I mean, we knew Jason was going to be something. I really did. Now, that's something different from my father to him, is that he used to be in the garage or the hut with the gear on at the age of 7, 8 years old, working out. And my mom used to come in and me decía, ese es el único. Ese va a ser.
Really?
Yeah, my mom would tell us. She said, he's the man. And she would spank him because he would do something he wasn't supposed to. He wouldn't cry. She said, ay, Joe, es muy macho. Ese va a ser. He's the one. He's very macho. He's the one that's going to be the one that's going to be the fighter of the family. And sure enough, he was.
Yeah, he was.
And he ain't scared of nothing, nothing. But he's really good now in a teaching wise. He's gotten very smart. He's very educated. I'm a little envious of him because he speaks so well. He writes so well. And I always wish I could do that. I can say things, but they don't come out the same way when I ride him or something. But he's very good. But he's very
You did good, Professor. You did good. Yeah.
He's very educated in that manner. Both of my sons are.
Yes.
Justin and Jason both are very educated that way. Justin, he doesn't do, my oldest, he doesn't do as much martial arts. He did a little bit in the early days, but he's had to rely on. But again, he's got that mentality of fighting in him, though.
Yeah. So he was part of the MMA experience. I mean, as with the family as well. I mean, Justin.
Yeah. I mean, Justin did it for a little bit, maybe a year or so, and I forced it on him, and because he wanted to quit. My wife wouldn't let him. She said, you need to see it out all the way through. It's finished in 1 year, and then you can do whatever you want to do after that.
What he was doing?
He was just a kid. He was just, he was young,
No, but what a discipline he was doing. He was doing
the karate stuff, Jeet-Kune-Do stuff.
Jeet-Kune-Do.
Stuff. And so, but once he grew up, he was working in some psychiatric places.
Okay.
And so he had to learn some stuff,
Okay.
And so he would come home and try it on Jason, try to show the tactics they showed him over there. And Jason would say, no, this is not going to work. He says, you need to try it like this. And he would tell him, I can't do that because of this or that or whatever. Right? But they practiced together a little bit. And then I would help him with some certain things about how to handle certain situations, watch out for certain situations and, stuff like that. But, he still had the martial arts spirit, and I would say the mindset about being aware and doing stuff like that. Even today, the same thing. His first patient, I think he had when he went into ER was he had a chola that had been shot or stabbed in the butt, right? And he had I think she got shot in the butt, by a gun, and he called me that a couple hours later. He said, Dad, you'll never believe what I had. He said, I had this chola here. She was all painted up and stuff. And she had been in a gang fight and she got shot. And she told him, get the bullet out, pendejo, and just get me out. I got to go help my homegirls. It's like, he was like, because he was trying to be real professional. What's your name?
She was tough.
She didn't want to hear all that. She told him, just fix me up and get me out of
here.
Right? So it was kind of funny. But yeah.
And how hard it was for you, that as a dad, and as a professor, with your kids when they were growing up, and you see the talent in one, as your mom says that he's the one, to choose, okay, who do you push more into the discipline of martial arts? Or it was just not that hard?
It wasn't that hard. It really wasn't that hard. Each of them were individuals. Luckily, because I promise you, you got kids.
Yeah.
But you don't want any kid the same. They have their own personalities.
Yeah.
Justin chose music. He loved art, different types of arts, like that. Whereas Jason liked what I liked, and he
was athlete
all the time. Yeah, and he was all the time, right? And so it was fairly easy, and I let them express themselves any way they wanted to. The only thing I asked of both of them is they had to be good people.
Yeah.
And I always push that on them, that they had to be respectful and good. And even to this day, I tell them the same thing. I don't care what happens or who, try to be your best at all times. You never know what other people are going through, right? So I always try to push that on them, but, it wasn't really hard, to be honest with you. But with Jason, he wanted it, he loved it, and I didn't have to push him at it, I worried about my son there when he was in high school because he never dated any girls. He didn't go to parties. I mean, seriously.
He was focused.
Yes, he was straightforward. There's an interview somewhere out there where they interviewed him and they asked him about girls. You're doing all this. He says, I like them, but I don't have time for them. That's what he says. They're just not there right now. And he would do, like I said, he was so focused on that all the time. He would go to parties with a friend. They'd leave like 8:30 or so, and he was back by the house by 9:30 or 10. And I was like, "Hey, dude, what he said, "Yeah, everything all right?" He says, "Oh yeah, it's just they started drinking and pulling some drugs out or something." And he said, "That's not for me." It's like, and he left, right? And so, me and Patricia just looked at each other and go, "Wow," But he was very focused during school time. When it was time to go to school, he'd get up at 4 a.m, go run, go do his thing, and then come back home, work out, and then go to school, right? And he was always disciplined like that all the time. To this day, he's still that way,
Did you want him to do that? I mean, like the professional career as a fighter, and I'm asking you as a dad, how hard it was for you, and if you wanted that, knowing that it's something really tough.
Yes, I did. I wanted that for him. I really did. I wanted him to do that, not only because I did it, but because he was good at it.
Yeah, sure.
He was really good at it. So I knew he could do this, and I,
And he wanted?
Yeah, he wanted
Okay.
it. He wanted it. It wasn't like I had to force it on him. Like I said, this started from way when he was little.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, you just say it.
It was like it was
You are more than that.
it was meant to be. I was like, and but at the same time, like I said, I didn't have to push that on him. I wasn't scared of it at all. I knew he was going to get injured, and my wife did too. And he always had the conversation with her mom: if I get hurt or anything happens, do not run out there, do not come out to the floor, right? And she never did. My wife was very professional. She went at a couple of times where I couldn't go. She'd go with him, and he'd gotten hurt a couple of times. Guys ran him into the tables, they flipped over, and stuff like that, and they get hurt, But no, I mean, I'll be honest with you. Like the only thing was when Jason got really hurt one time during an MMA fight. A guy tried to put his finger in his eye, try to, and then another time, and then it scratched his eye pretty bad. And so we ran into the point where his eye was almost damaged. He was at bent top. It was late at night. It was his eye was patched up for about 3 weeks or so because he couldn't see and he was kind of seeing double. And I told Jason, I mean, this is part of the fight game, This is what happens, The guy did a legal move to him, whatever, right? But I told him, look, we need to look at the risk to reward ratio, the way I call it. One was, do you want to run this gym, make money in the long run, and this is going to be your career, what you have? Or do you want to do a short career in MMA and keep fighting? I said, whatever you choose to do, I'll be right here with you. I said, I can run the gym, you can go do it, it's up to you. But just think about it, right? And he thought about it, and he thought, well, if I get hurt, I probably won't be able to do this if I do it like at this level, right? I could keep fighting and maybe make it, maybe not, right? And so he decided not, We had gotten called, I think, a while back to possibly doing a contract for the UFC at one time, We actually turned it down because I felt he wasn't ready for it. And that's a whole nother story.
Yeah.
But the whole point was that, I know he was good enough to be there. And even to this day is, I think he's super, super good. I mean,
he is.
It's like, I mean, he does handle himself very well, on the floor, on the mat, and outside, And of course, as I do right now, he's being a great dad,
Yeah. Now he's a new dad.
Yeah. So that's another type of fight he's got going.
Yeah, oh my God! And I was gonna ask you that, but we wait for that because I mean, there's the balance where the family, work, your passion. We went back to the environment that you grew up, that you decide to pursue this career or this beginning passion. When did you turn it professional as a professor, as a coach? Because I mean, you were working offshore, you were working in a different completely industry. When did you say, okay, this is gonna be my life, my work?
Again,
everything.
I never thought I would do it to this level, period. And I went on to work on land. I came work for another company for 30 years, working in a plant, right? And I'm working 8, 10, 12 hours.
And at the
come
same
to the
time?
gym, at the same time. And I was over here, and my wife is the one, and I was traveling back and forth to Houston. And I was now booking a lot of privates. I was working at another school called Elite. And at the time, I had more privates than anybody. I could make as much money as I wanted to, right? And my privates at the time were like $80 to $100, and so I was, everybody come there, everybody you. A lot of people they post out there, who's the first instructor you ever trained with, and my name pops up a lot.
Soliz, yeah.
So I was able to do it, but I was always gone from home, and plus Jason was traveling. With me, and I was doing seminars, and he was competing, and we would be gone all weekend. My wife was, getting really upset. We weren't to the point of talking about divorce, but she was really upset, right? Because we were always gone. So she said one day, she says, you guys are gone every weekend, and we would take her with us, but she didn't want to be gone all day just doing that, right? So she decided that we're going to move, and she said, so we're going to make that move. We need to move to Houston. You've outgrown El Campo. You're over there all the time, so I moved. We ended up buying a house, moving over here. And then at that time, I was still working at my job for the next 15, 20 years. I continued doing the same thing, And then one day, I decided, I didn't like the way the gym was going. It was going so big. We were at around 300, 400 people now.
Oh my God.
And I was going from class to class. Jason was now teaching in the same gym. And we would go in, I'd go, hey, how are you doing? And I didn't remember their name. I'd have to run to the card deal, look at their name. Oh, hey, Beto. Hey, Beto. Because there was so many, and I didn't like it. I did not like it because it wasn't personal. It wasn't me. I wasn't able to have a good time with everybody, right? So I started talking to Jason. Hey, we should think about opening our own school, right? This would be good for you in the future, right? Blah, blah, blah. And yeah, so we ended up opening a gym, and then we had partners with somebody else. We had a disagreement. We left. We went to go open our next gym, which was called Third Coast now. And that's where we started doing our own thing. And at this point, Jason has never worked a real job. He's never had he worked a little part-time jobs for Red Bull, delivering stuff.
Like these McDonald's jobs. I mean, as a young.
But he's never had a real job as an adult, This is all he's ever done. He's, Jason's, at my house, we study tapes, we look at TV, all the time. I mean, our room that's all we do, We move the sofas out of the way, we're done. That's what we would do, right? And, we trained for many hours, by ourselves, researching stuff, doing stuff together, right? So when we moved over there and we started doing the Third Coast, I mean, at this point, I was like, okay, we're now doing the gym. I thought, you know what? I think when I turn 65, I'm going to retire and then I'll do the gym. And at this point, it was Jason's gym. It's in his name. It's his business, right? So I thought, I'll do that one day. But as time went on at my regular job, at 30 years, I was really frustrated now at work, and things were getting to me at work, and things were going up. And so, I took an early leave, and I took a package deal, and I left my job. And then I went into the gym full time, right? And it was probably the best thing. And again, like you said a while ago, I wish I had done this. I do too. But you know what? It was meant the way it was, because I learned so many things as a business, working in my business at the plant that I apply now today on this one, that gives me an edge, so much more an edge. And I understand, I have I'm more grateful now of being here doing this at this level with Jason at this point, with my wife, as a business, as a family business.
How old were you when you did that switch that you went straight from?
I was probably 58, 57.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it hasn't been that long.
And it was still before that you were going to work and you were working.
People said, man, you got two jobs. I said, no, let me correct you. I have one job. The day that the gym feels like it's a job, I'll quit because I already have a job. I don't need two jobs.
Yes.
This is my passion. So this is the one thing that I always tell everybody. A lot of people see us, they see our end product, right, for what we're doing, right? And they go, oh, I'm going to want to do what you, are you willing to do what I did to do what I do? Sleep in a car, go places, be broke, not have no money, There was a time which Jason was doing this, and we were doing this, and we didn't make no money at this gym. We just kept the doors open, and we were just trying to survive, right? Because the first 4 or 5 years is all about trying to build a business, and Jason understood that, but he didn't have any money. His brother was busy traveling, doing this, doing that, had money, and he didn't have anything, and he just was trying to make it. And so all the privates, the money he made, he'd pay on his vehicle and whatever he had, right? It was a struggle. It was a hard struggle for him, right? And I could see it, but I told him, hang on, it's coming. And sure enough, as time went on, it got better. Things got better. Now he takes care of his family with the gym and so forth. And but it was a hard struggle. I could have bailed him out, and just give him money, because I did give him some money. Don't get me wrong, but I was working. But at the same time, we all struggled through this whole deal to build our. And he did a great job building, because our goal when our first 5 years of opening this gym was not to make money. It was to pay the rent, break even and that was the goal. And so Jason got out there and he started competing a lot. And everybody started recognizing in the community that who we were, and our jiu-jitsu was
and still he was pursuing the professional career. Okay.
Yes. And so he was just building the name, and everybody would see, and everybody would see that we were legit, and I had a name of myself as a martial artist, but again, we were both in different avenues. I've been around a while, so I was, established, and people knew who I was, as a martial artist and doing the things that I did. And then on his side, he was coming up and, doing his thing and, bringing the name up. So as the both two came together, right, we gained the respect in the community, and we were able to, try to do the gym. And I think, he did a great job, and, everybody that, hopefully that we're still, and this is something that goes on. It's not something that we just got here and we're here. No,
yeah.
It's something you have to continue to work on all the time, right? But yeah, he did a great job helping us build our name, and then, making us hopefully a household name that,
sure.
in our community here that people know who we are, the Texas Third Coast, right?
Yeah.
And we're a family gym. We have like 1% of the people that compete. It's not a big, 98% of the people are just hobbyists that enjoy doing martial arts and like the intensity, of what we do.
I remember one time that you said that your gym, it wasn't a gym for, I don't know if I'm gonna say it right, but I remember the words that you were not like, I don't want to say if it was competitive, but you were not building a gym to compete. But it was more for, like the community and to learn and to, of course, love the discipline. And how do you describe that? Because I remember that, okay, so you're not afraid that your fighters find another place where they can develop to go and find something that they were going more as a professional, more to compete. Did I remember right? What you said that night?
Yeah, I will say just that, that's part of it, if any good coach, any real coach, that if you have somebody, because you will have somebody, even Jason, is very high level, right? And not everybody was comparing. So guess what I did? I sent him somewhere else to go train. Not because I don't know how to train, but because he needs that environment as well, right? And any good coach would do that. If I have a fighter that I think that's excelling and he doesn't have what he needs, or he's gotten to a point, and you got to be honest with yourself, not to let the coach's ego get in the way and go, oh, he needs to be here. You got to be able to say, hey, maybe somebody at the gym needs to help him, maybe he needs to go. And that's a real coach, that's a real leadership, right? That when you go to do that, and you got to realize it, and you can't, you can't have your own ego to do that, to say, hey, but yeah, hopefully I answered your question there. But,
yes, because I was, at that time, I was like, I say to myself, but you guys are the best. I was like, you guys are the best. Why not to prepare these guys? But you're right. Sometimes it's like the picture that you see is bigger. It's like you cannot focus on that 1% or that 10%. It's to build the community that if someone wants to grow bigger, maybe they can find it somewhere else. And you are still for the rest of the...
Well, let me tell you something that I've seen over the years, that I've seen gyms go down because of that. That the way you have one or two guys that are really good, or three or four guys, and you have 40, 60 guys, maybe 100 guys, and you focus only on that group. And everybody else says, they notice it, and they start going down. The rest of the members, you're only on those people. And I've seen that happen many times, For me, what I don't want in my gym is I don't want cliques. I don't want just this group here, or, like this. I want everybody to be part of it. You're not any better than this guy, even the black belts. You're not any better than anybody in this gym. You just have more knowledge about about jiu-jitsu or whatever it is we're learning, right? That's the only difference between you and the other. Other than that, we're equals.
Yeah.
And if your environment didn't start that way, then you're probably wrong. You're going to lose, because people lose respect for each other that way.
Sure.
Everybody's equal. In our gym, everybody treats everybody the same, right? It doesn't matter, but we have good professors that have good leadership, good technique, and they help you guys and so forth. But no one ever is like, hey, you come here, to degrade you, You don't want that. And, having fighters is always a hard one, man. You're always gonna, fighters are a tough deal too. And you have to, as a good coach, you got to recognize that too, because as a fighter, like I said earlier, is that you want them to be selfish. You want them to do this, do that, and it's all about them. But also they have to be coachable, and they have to be able to listen, to learn, right? And then you'll get certain guys that get to a certain point and they think they know it all, right? And then things start to go south, and you have to remind the guys, and we've had that happen to us too. You know, where I got guys that think they know more than us, you know, and they're just started out, and you know, and so they got to go figure it out on their own. So I'll, you know, if I have to, I'll dismiss you. If you're not, you know, like I said, tell everybody when you come to our gym, you know, I give everybody a free week pass. You know, come try it out, but it's not just for you; it's for me too.
Yeah.
You know, because I might not accept you. You know, you might not. You might not accept
I
us,
see that. And it's not on every business that this happened. I see that.
I could use the money just like anybody else, no doubt about it. And they want to sign up, but I tell them no. I've done it before, several times. No, I'm afraid, my friend. I tell them in a nice way. Look, I don't think this gym's for you, man. It's not going to work out here for you. You know, or they've been there a little while. They show one character, and then a couple months go by, and they show another character, and I'll have to dismiss them. I will do whatever it takes for the whole family, not just for my paycheck, you know.
Yeah.
And like I told everybody, we all can use money. We you know, the one thing everybody says, oh, jiu-jitsu is so expensive or martial arts so expensive, but it's not expensive. It's not expensive.
No, it's not.
What's expensive is insurance. What's expensive is light bills. What's expensive is the mats, the air conditioning that you train in. Or you want to just learn where I can sit out in the park a lot. We can go to the park, and I can just charge you $40. That's cool, you know. But you're not going to get a restroom. You're not going to get any of those other things, right?
You're on your own. Go.
You're on your own.
Yeah.
Right. That's what's expensive. What people don't realize is that, you know, you're getting a nice environment. You know, the schools are getting nicer today. You know, you know, a lot of people have showers. They have all this other stuff, right? And they have a lot of overhead. Insurance is way up. You know, you have, you know, the nice mask, the air conditioning, nice environment, like you said. You know, you want all these things, but it costs money. You know, you know, people don't realize. Oh, you charge too much. Well, you're not really paying just for that. You're paying for a lot of other things, right? Yeah. You know, a lot of gyms don't have, you know, defibrillators. We have a defibrillator. We have insurance. A lot of gyms don't have insurance. There's a lot of things that they don't have that we have, right? And you need to have those things, you know. Yeah. I really should, but you know, some of those things that just kind of change for the environment where you need this for your students, and you know, and if it's not a right deal for you, you probably shouldn't be there, you know. And I'm okay with, you know, I'll tell people, if you tell me you come and you say, oh, I'm going to go, I'm not going to be here. Well, I'm fine. I'll shake your hand. I'm okay with that. It doesn't bother me. It really doesn't. You know, you want to go to another gym, that's cool. And I don't have a problem with any of the competitions with everybody building gyms, right? Why? Because they're actually doing me a favor as well. Every time you advertise and you put it out, it's more for all of us, right? And so, like, even though they might not like your gym, they might come to my gym because of your advertising. Oh, they're already investing in their time to go there. So I'm okay with that. It doesn't matter. How you do your business and how you conduct yourself and run a good program is up to you. And so I don't think there's anything wrong with it.
How do you control your community, your group of people? And we don't see the bad things. But I know, and lately, bad experience happened that it came to us. How you notice when it's a guy who just go and not gonna connect with the people, who just go and hurt people and just go and try to challenge people, and how do you handle? Because I mean, you say you do it in a nice way. Have you ever had those kind of guys? I mean, the ones that challenge you and everybody else?
In our earlier days, you know, we just accepted it. You'd get your ass kicked on the floor and we'd have a problem. We'd put you to sleep and stand over the top of you and taunt you, right? But those days are past, and, you know, we have lawsuits, things called lawsuits. So we get people to sign a release, and you pay for the private. We call it a private now. Okay. So it's not a challenge. So we get you to sign the release, and if you want to go that route, okay, pay the $100 for your private, or $120, whatever you're going to go at, and then you get to do it. Oh, I don't have $100. Well, we're not going to let you go because it's a liability for us. And you have to be as a businessman first, right? And then when we do have that person that already in the gym that's conducting himself in such a manner, you pull them to the side and, you know, have a talk with them, you know, take them off first. I'll watch. In my time, what we used to do, if we had somebody that was being a real jerk on the floor and just doing stuff, we'd just send people to him and just beat him up. And, you know, we had a girl in my old gym that got hurt, and I hate to say it, but I was one of them. But, you know, they said, hey, just go beat him up. They call us in the office, they can go beat him up, you know, just arm. That's the way they used to do things. We don't do that thing anymore. What I do now is if I see somebody not conducting themselves in a proper manner, pull them out to the side and have a conversation with them. Hey, look, this is going on, notice that no one's like rolling with you, or you're nobody, we're seeing you're doing this, you almost hurt this person. And me and Jason usually put our bodies out there first to make sure, right? And then and if that doesn't happen, we'll have a 7 conversation with him. And it's not a harsh one. I'm not, threatening him or anything like that. I'm just talking to him, letting him acknowledge, and sometimes they realize it, and sometimes they don't, and they thought, well, I thought we're fighting. No, you're not fighting. You're training. That's usually the first word that comes. I thought we were fighting. No, we're training. We're trying to learn. We're trying to have fun, do stuff. And again, sometimes it's too much, and they want more. I say, hey, you probably should go to this other gym, right? But other than that, I'll do it again. And then I'll bring them back in one more time, And then it'll come to the point where, okay, you either hurt somebody or almost hurt somebody, right? And so, like, we start talking about dismissal, right? And then I let them send them home, let them think about it. And sometimes they'll call me back and they'll tell me, hey, I don't think I need to be here anymore. Okay, I understand. Yeah. And I'll leave it at that. You guys don't hear about it much.
That's what I ask you, because I only see the nice side of the gym.
The reason you don't hear a lot of situations that happen, now you hear about a lot of it in other gyms because they make it they go on social media and they go, here's how we handle it. We handle it like an HR position, human resource position, where if there's a problem, it stays there. There's no reason to bring all that negativity to the gym, right? So we just handle it inside the house. We just dismiss the person, whatever, and we leave it at that. If you come and ask me, I just, there was a problem, and we handle it. I won't go into a lot of details because it's not that important, and I don't want a bunch of drama. That's the one thing I try to stay away from our gym, is a lot of drama. And if I hear stuff, I'll bring people in and have that conversation when we sit down, and tell them to stay here and don't, spread on the floor, blah, 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 whatever. And that's why you guys don't hear that, because we try to be as professional as we can, and whatever the situation is, and, sometimes some very comfortable situations happen, and it really has to be so. But we're not perfect like any other gym. We have our problems too. You guys just don't hear about it because, again, we try to be very professional about how we handle it. And I think every gym, so instead of going to social media and putting it out there and so forth. And even then, I've had people that try to post stuff on us that said, we did this, and what do? We just don't say nothing. We'd rather not say anything. If they want to say that, it's your side of the story. And most in social media is that everybody wants to jump on, and they don't know the whole story. And I just leave it alone. Yeah. And I'm fine, okay with
eventually, it's going to fade out.
Yeah. And some of those people, we had one guy about a couple years ago that really tried to blast me about some kid's deal. And guess what? He leaves the gym, he goes to another gym, he does the same thing at that gym. And this just happened recently. Okay. And he tries to blast the other judge, and they blast him bad. And then they put him on Reddit, how he discriminates against girls and women and the kids, and how he, this whole deal. And I told Jason, I said, once he left here, it was going to happen again, somewhere else. Yeah. Maybe not here, but somewhere else. And sure enough, it did. It got worse because those guys came back after him. I didn't do all that. I let him say what they want to say and post, a negative review on us and stuff. And it's okay. We'll handle it.
Ignore it. Yeah. We know what you have in the values in it.
And that's the one thing that you're. How old are you now, Beto?
46.
46. So as you go older, like me, I'm just going to be 65. Is that, you can screw up, and but if people know your character and how you've been consistently for several years. And you get to certain, and then somebody says, "Oh, that guy, he did this," right? People go, "Really, man? I didn't think he was like that." Because they question, because they know your integrity, they know who you are, and that's who I hope that I am right now. So I tell my son and everybody else, I say, "Hey, build your history up really well, so that one day, somebody's going to attack your character. They're going to question, so forth. But if you're intact and you've been who you're supposed to be, and does it happen out of character sometimes? Sure it does. It happened to me not too long ago. I got into a squabble with some couple guys in a cage, and refereeing, and I kind of lost it a little bit, and but that's not me normally, but it was me.
Yeah.
I'm only human. But I will say that one of the things is, at the same time, I check myself. I go, "Oh, behave yourself, Joe." Just the back. And I know that, and that's also part of my martial arts, of being, okay, recognize where you're at, recognize what just happened, and pulls you back at the same time. So,
and Professor, you are now a referee and judge as well. When did you do that transition? To be part of that, you had to be a fighter, you had to be a professor as well, is part of the process, or you can skip and just go straight on referee and judge.
You can jump that. The only thing that tells you can't be a judge is that you got to take a test, right? You go do the training, and then they send you the deal. Now, I've spoken to a lot of people that have never done this before, and they come to me all the time. They said, "Hey, I referee basketball. Whatever, judge whatever." And I said, "Well, really?" I said, "You train martial arts?" I said, "No." I said, "Well, it's going to be really hard, but I'm really good at this." "Oh, I'm sure you are, but this is a whole different deal, right?" And so that's why I tell people, it's when I started doing this, I started back in 2003, 2004.
The referee, judging.
I actually did it before that, probably 2 years before that, but it wasn't sanctioned yet. Mm-hmm. We didn't have actual referees and judges yet for MMA yet. Mm-hmm. What we had was a couple of shows going on, and there's Mick Maynard, and he's now for the UFC. He was running the show up in College Station, and we would do shows out there, Long Star Beatdown, and I was helping out, judging, refereeing, wrapping hands, everything, but it wasn't sanctioned yet. So we were able to do all this, right? And we had the cage set up in a what is it called? Hurricane Harry's. It's a big college bar, mm-hmm. right? And so, anyways, we would do the shows there. Push it forward, I guess, a year or so, 2 years. One day, another guy I know, Rudy Vasquez, walks in, and he's works for the commission, and he's walking. He's in a suit, really nice. I said, "Hey, Rudy, how are you doing?" Because I know him because he trained Jeet Kune Do and he Muay Thai. I said, "What are you doing?" He said, "Oh, I'm here to check this show out." I said, "Oh, who you with?" He said, "I'm with the boxing commission." I said, "Oh, okay." So I walk away and I go, "Oh shit!" I said, "I think something's going to happen tonight. I don't know." So I'll go tell the guys. They said the commission's here, right? Oh, what? So they came to watch the sanctioned bout. So, long story short, at that point they realized there's money to be made in this probably, and they sanctioned it and they organized it, and and now it became a sanctioned event for the state, right? And at that point, I realized, oh man, they don't have any real referees that understand. They got boxing guys, and I thought, I could be the first one. I could do this. So I said, I went and asked some of the referees, I said, how did you get started doing this? He said, "Oh, I'm a boxing referee. I did boxing." I said, "Okay." So I went and tried to find out. So I went back to my gym, and we decided that we needed real judges and referees for the state of Texas. So I just said, "Hey, we were the first ones to have a real seminar." We brought Doc Hamilton from California down here. We flew him in. We had a room about 50, 60 guys in there, and we did the first seminar for it. And that's how I got my first start there. And then we just kept going from there.
And you were still practicing everything else.
Yeah, I will tell you, man. People don't realize that, people think, "Oh, I used to be a fighter, or I used to train," or man, you need to train consistently all the time. Now, does that mean that you can stop and then you can still be a judge? Or yes, you got some experience, but being a judge, being a fighter, coming to be a judge or referee, doesn't mean you're going to do a good job. These are two separate things. Yes, you know the techniques, you know the situations, right? But they're different. They're very different, and people don't realize. They say, "Oh, he was a fighter; he'll be a great judge." Mm-hmm. Not necessarily. Not necessarily. You got to learn this. This is a process, just like anything else, right? And then the other thing is that if you are a referee and you're in there, if you are training, you're way ahead of most people, right? And if you're not training, it's going to hold back a little bit. And the reason I say is because I know that, like Danielle and myself, that we do this a lot, that we can almost anticipate where the fight's going or what's happening, when the guy puts a guy in the cage, where he's going to pull him out, how he's going to get it, and we can get in those positions. And we know that because we train. I had a guy got kicked in the calf, and his nerve activated, he couldn't stand up. And I knew what happened because it happened to me before. And so I knew it. And so I was watching him, and I was telling him, fight, and or take a knee if you don't want to fight anymore, right? And so but I could tell, because I trained, I've had that kick happen to me. I knew he could weather it. I knew he could get past it if he could manage it, right? And the other fighter didn't jump on him. And so the other fighter didn't jump on him right away, and he just kind of held back. He wasn't sure what to make of it, right? So then the bell goes off, and then the guy walks out, and he's kind of limping. He gets back up. He said, "It passed. It's gone." I said, "I know." I know. I said, "I've already been there." I said, "But you get that kick again, and it happens, right? You better protect yourself, man. Be ready to fight, right?" But I knew that because I trained.
Yeah.
And I've been in there. I know what they're going through. Do you have to be a fighter? No, but you need to know. You need to be in those situations. Danielle, yeah, she's been doing this now a couple of years, and she says, man, I didn't realize how much there was, how much I knew, and how much I can anticipate a lot of things that are what I see in the cage. And and then the other part is like, when you're doing this, is like, people don't realize, like, everybody expects us to be perfect. Everybody can make mistakes, but judges and referees, you can't make mistakes, right? You cannot make a mistake, right? You got to be perfect, right? It's not. There's a lot of mistakes, a lot of things that happen in there. People don't even see them. Mm-hmm. We got the best seat in the house, right? Yeah. And then when you got crowds that are going crazy, you got a bunch, thousands of people yelling or hundreds of people yelling, it's different. I walked on the stage in UFC, right? And I walk in and I can feel the energy. The cameras are moving everywhere. People are talking to me in my ear, and I'm getting ready to do the fight for the UFC, and the guy's yelling. And 20-something different countries. He's not how many people are in the gym. I'm working at the Toyota Center. The Toyota Center's wide open. He's yelling at, in different countries. Can you imagine that? Countries. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Not locally, just countries, right? And you got all these cameras moving around, and here we go, and then the crowd's going crazy. It's a great fight, and everybody's screaming. And you got to stay focused on that fighter. You got to stay focused and not go by what everybody else is screaming and going on. And you got to make a decision, right? And those things of keeping yourself calm and learning how to coach yourself in your own head and stay calm in the moment. I think everything that I've ever done in martial arts, building up to this point, has built up to that point where I can do this, mm-hmm. and I can help other people to figure out how to do this right. And I did a real good job. I brag on myself a little bit. Mm-hmm. Danielle, she looks really good when she's out there. She does really, really good. I mean, I boast on her a lot, but I've also ripped her a couple of times, because she needs to hear it now, of course. Because one day, like I told her, we're all going to be on that end where everybody's going to hate you, talk shit about you, and you got to just be ready to be mentally tough with it. You got to just handle it and just take it. If you mess up, own it, and that's it.
From all the different places where you be and experience, fighter, professor, coach, judge, referee, which one is the hardest one for you? To be?
I think probably being the professor, the teacher.
Okay.
Because you have so many responsibilities.
Yeah.
You're responsible for everything that goes on in the gym, how everybody feels, your own family life.
Yeah.
The situations that happen, you being a leader, you're trying to be an example. You're trying to, you don't want to wear false mask in front of people. You don't want to be this way here and then over here you're somebody else, mm-hmm. right? I want to be the same people. There's some people that I know. There's a lot of people that don't like me, and that's okay. Mm-hmm. And I'm the same way. But the difference is that, if me and you had words, or I don't like you, and you come up to me and I'm in a crowd and you come shake my hand, I won't shake your hand. I've done it before. I'll just leave you standing. Because if you're going to talk shit about me, I'm not going to talk shit back behind you, but I will treat you the same way I would anywhere else. I don't like you, so I'm not going to fake it. Mm-hmm. So I won't shake my hand. Now, I've had guys walk up in a group of known people, I won't mm-hmm. use their names, mm-hmm. and they go to shake my hand, and I don't stick my hand out, and everybody goes really quiet, and everybody's, if professional's not shaking your hand, there's something right, and that's just me. I'm not going to fake it. If you come over and you've been talking shit about me, and I know, I will call you on it. Mm-hmm. I don't have a problem saying anything to anybody. I don't, But I'm respectful at the same time. If I hear something that I don't agree on, I'll sit back and I'll look and listen, okay? But if you're with me, my students, or my family, yeah, you're going to get it back from me. You'll mm-hmm. And not in a bad way, but I'm just going to let you know, but I'm not going to physically hurt you or anything but I'm going to let you know that I know, mm-hmm. That you're, and they get caught off that. They start backtracking, trying to make excuses. But it's like
everybody thinks that just because you're a fighter or because someone is a fighter, everything is gonna be so punching or fighting, which is not true. No. And I see that more now that I practice. That people who trains knows that's not the smartest way to fix things.
Sure, I can't tell you how many times me and Jason have been pulled over on the freeway. We get out or at a store and people are going to chasing us to the store, we're all like, oh, we screwed up or whatever, and we get out of the car and they see us and they go, oh shit, and they're like, they take off, right? And I mean, and we're not even trying to we refuse to pull over. I mean, we could.
Of course.
The way I look at it, bro, I've had people go, throw fingers, make faces at me, and I just wave to them, like, oh, and I'm ready, and I'm sorry, or I'm waving to them, maybe, I don't know what's going on with them, but I think to myself, man, you just don't realize how lucky you are.
Yes.
And I just that's in my own mind. That's how I play
exactly.
it in my mind, right? But no, I will just say, the difficulty that we get in there sometimes in the cage, it's really hard. I mean, making those decisions, but being an instructor, I think a teacher is way much harder just because there's so many more things that you have to deal with day to day. Figuring out, I always tell everybody, being a good leader, you have to lead from the front, lead from the side, and lead from the back. Because you want somebody to show them the way, and once they get there, walk at their side, be with them. And then you'll be proud of them, stand behind them, and watch them do what they're going to do. That's what a good leader, and correct them if there's something wrong, That's the way I look at leadership, those three matters. Most people just look at, I'm just showing them how to do everything. Well, yeah, you get to a certain point, but you got to keep, helping them, keep going. And I think anybody will do that with it. And I think all our guys at our gym do a really good job, especially the black belts have a really good character about themselves.
And I see that, yeah.
Yes.
I witnessed that.
And I think at every level, not just the black belt. I think we have all the guys that are like, everybody's so respectful and good to each other like that. I wish. No, I can't sit back here and say that everybody, there's somebody that doesn't like anybody. I don't know that to be a fact. Mm-hmm. I really don't. I mean, I think for the most part, everybody seems to be that way. Now, let's back up just a second, but you have females in gyms, right? And so this goes not just for females, for guys too. And I tell them the same thing. Like, if you don't like somebody or you don't feel comfortable rolling with somebody or something, just say no. Just be nice about it, whatever. And this is for guys or girls, either one, because you may not feel safe with somebody, But I will say, what you were saying before about the gyms and so forth was that, coming to different environments in gyms is, I think that one is that you want to feel safe there. Mm-hmm. And, in a couple of things you got to look out for is, like you said, is the gym clean? To be at that gym, do they have girls? Do they have females? Mm-hmm. If there's no females, it might be a red flag.
Teens.
If you're a girl, are there teens? Do you see wives and kids hanging out there? Are they acceptable in here, right? Stuff like that. I had to dismiss one guy just because he kept taking his shirt off all the time, walking in front of the ladies and everything. I said, dude, we don't do that here. Put your shirt on, wear a shirt. And I kept warning him. I warned him like 4 or 5 times. Finally, I pulled him to the side, bro, this is not going to work. And then plus he's throwing F-bombs all the time, everywhere, right? I get it. F-bombs is acceptable today. But for me, it's with the guys or the people you're training with, not over here in the family environment. Where we're no, we don't do that.
You're gonna complete how many years on the MMA or on
I've been doing martial arts 50 years.
50 years.
50 years.
Okay, can you tell me what other besides boxing, jiu-jitsu, Muay Thai, what else do you have on your curriculum?
Okay, so I have.
And on what level?
I have black belts in judo, shonryu karate, and taekwondo. Right.
Okay.
Those are the black belts, and then also, of course, jiu-jitsu. Right. And jiu-jitsu. Next year, I will have, I think, 19 years. I'm due for a 5th degree, meaning that I've been, usually when you get your black belt, you have 3, 6, 9, and then you have to wait 5 years. Mm-hmm. So I waited my 5, so I got my 4th degree. So my professor Octavo that passed away, he gave me my 4th degree. I was at 14, he called me my teenager, my teenage years. Right?
Teenager.
And so now from 14, I have to wait 5 years, so I'll be 19. So, right? But yeah, that's where I'm at with my black belts. And then, but I've trained, man, in boxing, shoot fighting, the Jeet Kune Do, meaning I've trained in knives, sticks, kali, trapping. I've wrestled.
Jeet is one of you that you mentioned that is one of your favorites, right?
It is one of my favorites. They'll never go away because.
Can you explain it why and for some that
the
don't know?
Jeet Kune Do is a little bit of the Bruce Lee martial arts, and the way it was, brought out to us later was that we call it Jeet Kune Do or the JKD Kali, meaning that we brought in the weapons like the Kali, like the sticks, the knives, the trapping, and it has a lot of attribute development, and I think that's why I liked it a lot. It got me better, faster. I'm going to be 65 again. I think I'm faster now than I was when I was 20 with my hands. Mm-hmm. It's the truth. They're like, and people might say, "Oh, you just..." No, I really believe this. I can make transitions from when I spar. Mm-hmm. I can go from short to long very quick. It was funny because Danielle saw me sparring one day and doing the stick and knife, and she was telling me how I know where you get that movement to be able to switch from left to right or going short long. It's just from the weapons. I said, "Yeah." It's like, and so I really feel like I'm much faster now than I was in. But that was the idea. And the reason was because the Jeet Kune Do, you can't do it the way Bruce Lee did it. But the idea was to improve the attributes that he had to get to that point, right? And so that's what, and it gave you an opening where you have an open mind, where you never have like, this is better than this or this is better than that. And it allowed you to go from martial art or range to range to range without a thought process. So I could go from ground fighting, stand up, weapons, everything, 2-on-1, 3-on-1, mass attack, whatever it is, we could adapt to any of those. And the beauty I love about it, even more so as an instructor, was that I can teach today, right now. If you bring me 6 girls right here to teach Boy Scout or Girl Scouts, I could teach the little girls. And you bring me some guys over here that are special op unit guys, I can develop a curriculum like that right here because of my knowledge. I can teach kickboxing over here right now. Whatever I can come up with it, all these different curriculums, whatever you ask me to do, I can do it. I can do locking. I can teach law enforcement how to secure, how to do locking situations. Mm-hmm. I can do just about anything now, based on my Jeet Kune Do training. Yeah. And then what it helped me was to understand how to break down and simplify jiu-jitsu and how it relates to everything else that I already do. For me and Jason, a lot of people don't realize is that is really how we learned our jiu-jitsu. Everybody thinks we're jiu-jitsu people, but we're not jiu-jitsu. We were stand-up people first. We were standing up, kicking, punching, all that. Jiu-jitsu come way later. And but we use a lot of the concepts that we did over here to bring over here. And you can see it. A lot of times you see our trapping in our hands, our grappling, or the legs, how we're, when we pass the guard and stuff like that, you'll see it, And some of you guys get to see some of the drills. Sometimes we don't tell you, we just do it. Right?
Yes. How much connected, sounds like logical, but how much is connected all the disciplines from each other?
I would probably say, without trying to separate any of them, they all have at least, at minimum, probably 30%, somewhere like that. I would say, because you look at the karate, people go, that's no good. It's not a fighting art. But let's back up. Look at the base. Look at the hand positioning, the way it happens. They have some basic stuff that boxing has, that every other position has, that some martial arts are lacking, that these MMA are lacking. They're lacking stability, footwork. It's there, and most fundamental, they say, but karate's no good. Then you look at, say, weaponry, like, the weaponry brings attribute development. Like, people go look at football, right? Guys running through tires or hitting things and stuff like that, right? And they go, well, that's not in football. Well, they use that to improve the attributes so that guys can be quicker. We do the same thing with the stick and the knife. We use those so that you can be quicker, adjust ranges, recognize what things. Because the stick travels with a non-trained person about 60 miles an hour. With a trained person, about 160 to 180 miles an hour. So I can move that stick that fast, right? And so what do you think it does for a person when he's just regular? It slows everything down. It's like driving on the highway, 80 miles an hour. Then you come to town, you're driving 30. That's how I feel. I look at it and I feel it. So, yes, I think that each martial art, whatever it is, judo, you have different throws, that fits here, fits there. Some 10%, maybe 30%, 20%, it's just a question of where's it needed? Where can you go without thinking about it? Make it without a thought process. It blends, right? Yeah. That's the easiest.
We were talking about, you were talking about when Ihab, one of our friends and is one of your students' son over this week. And you mentioned something to him that I say, okay, I'm going to just skip it, pretend that I didn't hear it, because I wanted you to say it. Ehab's son is practicing karate right now, which is great, of course, as well. But you guys start talking about jiu-jitsu, and you see something about jiu-jitsu relating the martial arts as if it was money. Can you explain that? Because I was gonna ask you, which one would you recommend to a random people who wanted to start as the one of that must martial arts that practice? Because it was related to that you tell to Ehab San.
I don't think there's anything that you must start. I just long as you get started.
Okay,
First of all,
sure.
let's just get started,
Sure.
right? Whatever it is, because you'll find your own. But our conversation was this: that he liked the karate, he liked doing the katas, and using his hands and feet. And I said, that's cool. I said, but you should learn a little jujitsu because you never know when you're going to need it. I said, look at your jujitsu kind of like the credit card. I said, your kicking and punching is like cash. You're always going to have it. For sure you'll have it. But what if you don't have cash or you show up somewhere like somebody takes you down? You want to have that MasterCard or that credit card of jiu-jitsu, right? And so you need it. You can charge it anytime. Anywhere you go, if something happens crazy you can throw that credit card. But that cash, it's going to be there all the time until it's not. And then what you need, I look at jiu-jitsu in any martial arts, like in any range that you fall into. You can learn kicking and punching, but one day you may fall down and you're going to need that jiu-jitsu. That's your MasterCard that you pull out to charge it on, right? It could be clinching. It could be, boxing. Some guy doesn't want to box with you. He just wants to, he wants to take you down. So you're trying to figure out how to move yourself, right? So you got to figure out all these different things. So yeah, I just look at, any martial art that you don't know, you should know a little bit or understand the range of it, and look at it like a credit card or some type that if you don't have the cash to pay it out or you don't have it, there's a card. You got something to pull out. You don't want to be left at home. What was I say? Don't leave your card at home, So you always want to have something like that in the back pocket for yourself.
And you will say the credit card, that will be the jiu-jitsu.
That would be the jiu-jitsu.
Okay.
Yeah.
And by the way, in the gym, there's everything. Literally, you can learn everything. There's all kind of classes. And I think it's a very complete. That's why it's an MMA gym, and I love it. But I think, and I agree with you, jiu-jitsu is incredible. How you can control a person without hurting him or hurting her. It's something that you can stop completely a chaos. That's how I see it. But 50 years of martial arts, would you agree with that?
Oh, definitely. Look at it this way, Beto. Even let's say that your daughter, she knows enough. She knows how to, hold somebody down and so forth. But let's just pretend that your Uncle Joe has too much to drink today, right? And you go up to Uncle Joe and you punch him and you kick him and you drop him. And tomorrow he has to look in the mirror and your mom's got to look at him and say, oh, why did you do this to your uncle? Whereas if you take him down, you hold him and just whisper to him, hey, Theo, behave yourself. Settle down. Are you ready? I'll behave. Okay. And you can talk to him and let him back up, right?
Yes.
It's a nice, easy way. Without punching him,
yes,
headbutting him, sticking your finger in his eyeball, slapping him in the groin. And because, again, you got to see the family tomorrow. Yeah, he'll be a little embarrassed about it, but it's not physical, right? You're holding him. Right?
It's going to be more emotional
and
than physical.
That little girl could do that. I could see her doing that because again, once someone knows versus doesn't know, it's two different things, right? That's the beauty of it. That's why I always tell everybody, if you let your kid train at least to the age of 14, they're going to be able to beat most grown men because they don't know they'll use a lot of strength and they'll know how to move around. So you'll see that.
And would you say that there's still controlling situation if a girl, as Ariel, is it still, if it's a big guy, they're small, light, to control a situation? Or how would you describe that as a professor and 50 years experienced martial art?
Well, I would say for sure that, the self-awareness has got to be number one. It's like, why are you there? Why are you in that position? Why did you put yourself there?
Got it.
Why did you allow it to happen to come this way, right? And then sometimes you don't allow it. Let's talk first. Somebody you don't know on the outside. You see somebody coming down the road. You're walking down the road, and they're on the same side. You could avoid that situation. Walk on the other side of the road. If they move to the other side, okay, there's a situation that started to happen. Something not right here, right? So you got to recognize it. watch what's going on around you. Pay attention to what's going on. Don't be on your phone. Like, you've heard all these little things that like this before. You're going to your car, Yeah, everybody takes it for granted. Yeah, you're on your phone, and you're going there, and it's just distracting. So your self-awareness probably has to be the number one thing. And then the other part is that, what if a lot of times some of these acts happen at home? They're domestic. Mm-hmm. That's a little bit different. So, and
mostly happen.
Yeah, mostly. So either you have to take yourself out of that situation, or you have to figure out something different. Now, here's what I think that a lot of times the martial arts does for you. Not just jiu-jitsu, but martial arts in general, self-awareness, is that the self-awareness of making good decisions, to complete yourself and decide, okay, I need to recenter myself, pay attention to what I'm doing. Is this acceptable? Is this not acceptable, right? And to remove yourself. If a guy comes to a little girl, like your daughter, that's her boyfriend, he's grabbing her, and she's accepting that he's grabbing her and he's shoving her around, and you do what I say, whatever, and she chooses to stay there, she needs to recenter herself and look at the situation again and go, hey, this is not acceptable. This should not be happening. And if she doesn't, there is where a lot of the self-awareness starts to happen, is that you're failing to do those things and recognize it. And so I think that, the physical end, I'll be honest with you, if you got to the physical end, you're having to do jiu-jitsu or you're having to kick bums, it's too late. It's way too late. That's the part that you don't want to go in. You would hope that there's at least 3 or 4 steps way before that, before you get there. If you're in that point, you're in a dangerous situation, especially if you're someone as small as she is. Yeah, you're in a very dangerous situation. I always suggest to my girls to carry a knife. I really do. I don't have a problem cutting nobody. Stabbing somebody. I've been stabbed myself. So I don't have a problem with that at all. Again, I'm not willing to cross that line unless I really have to. And when I say cross that line, I mean somebody hurting my family, me, sure, my students, my best friends. Something like that. Just because you throw your finger at me, you talk shit to me from some, that's okay. I've been there. I'm not willing to cross that line. It's okay. It's okay. Mm-hmm. But we're talking about severe. But in the female side of it, honestly, if you're having to go physical, it's way too late. And if you aren't physical and you recognize little things that are happening, the way they're talking to you, the way they're handling you, you need to check yourself. Not them, you. You need to check. Are you that less of a person to allow somebody to treat you that way? That's what you need to think about. You need to, that's why I say, like, a lot of times, back to our earlier conversation, was that, you need to know yourself, and you need to be able to figure out how you're going to respect yourself. And if you don't know these things, you're, what's acceptable and what's not, to get that balance.
So I'm assuming when you give this self-defense seminar, a lot of talk is on that seminar, besides the physical self-defense.
Female predators look for the easy, right? They're looking for something. There could be 4 girls here, and they're all there, and the guys show up, and one guy says a dirty joke or says something kind of inappropriate, but he's waiting for the first girl to laugh. Who's going to laugh? Oh, okay, that's the one. The other ones didn't. That's the one he starts to, okay, he's trying to single her out. She went for it. They have different ways of doing stuff, right? Sure. So you have to see that, and so, like, they'll try to single that one out, and then later on they come back around, hey, you want a drink and this and that, and it could, man, let me tell you what, I had a girl, I won't say who she was, but she was a very high-level FBI agent and going on to be, she worked first for some security, online security stuff. But anyways, she knew knives, sticks. She knew all my curriculum. She's really good at everything. She's very knowledgeable. She knows, hey, don't do this, don't do that. And if you go here, and guess what? She trusts a guy. They go back to her apartment, and she's date raped. The guy puts a drug in her. She goes to the bathroom. He throws something in her drink, and she's date raped. Right? She knew everything. She came to me. She was so upset about the whole. She said, "I'm so stupid. I know this, blah 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 blah." She kept blaming herself back and forth, and I, and like I told her, I don't know really what to tell her. Be honest with you, because but at the same time, again, it can happen to anybody, and you can know all the physical ends of things and think you're smarter, but you can't let your guard down when you don't know somebody, and this person that she thought she knew for one night, she knew him previously and years before, and then they just kind of had a thing together, and they went back to her apartment, and I told her, she told me she didn't expect to really go that direction. They were just, because he rehabbed her, and they just became good friends. But nevertheless, I mean, but the whole deal is that you can't let your guard down, and they got to pay attention, right? And they got to listen to themselves, and I think a lot of times we don't listen to ourselves, and we know the difference.
Yes.
It's like, you go, man, I shouldn't do that. And you probably should listen to yourself.
Yeah.
You got to make that decision, right?
Mm-hmm.
You've been there, when you're 15, 16 years old, it's kind of hard because you haven't got enough experience. But at our age, we see something,
Yeah.
and usually we're right. And you just got to go with it.
When you figured out something, you're already late. And that's what something you just said. It applies to anything. It can apply to your own job, family, personal issue, situation, your partner, your couple, at home, with your wife, with your husband. Like, oh, shit. I mean, the awareness of being active in something that you can prevent it. And this is something that it helps, the practice of martial arts gives you on a personal side as well.
Yeah, I tell women during seminars, self-defense, and even in general, is that, girls or females are really good with that sixth sense. And I tell them, follow it. And they go, well, what if I'm wrong? Well, you're wrong. But I would rather you use your sixth sense. Because when a guy walks over to a girl, he goes, hey, how are you doing? He touches her, and she kind of goes like this a little bit, right? You should have got it. She didn't like it.
Yes.
Right? But you get closer, and you're like, because I got my different levels that I tell the girls how, and to the point where you get to space, and then your hands come up or whatever, right? But you get it, right? And the guy gets it. I mean, but when you start following yourself, because like I said before, some of these guys that do this stuff, they're predators, man. They're looking for the easy, the weak, the dumb, the laughing, that you think that they're not paying attention. Yeah, and they try to separate you, and they try to do all these different things. They're a lot of times they're interviewing you through their conversation. You just don't realize it. And
then, like in jiu-jitsu, you don't know when they're separating. One of the rules, I mean, keep your hands together. You don't know in that kind of conversation or in that kind of, interaction, how they are creating that guard down on you that they, boom.
Like I said, as long as you guys are moving and you're blocking, you're kind of fishing, and you're having a good conversation. Nothing's going on. You're communicating. You're flowing. The minute he passes your guard, or he locks you down, or puts you in a bad position, and you can't get out, it's an argument. Because now you're arguing about how am I going to get out of here. He's saying no. You're saying yes, and it's an argument. That's not a conversation anymore, right?
Yes.
So the movement, the jiu-jitsu has its own conversation, right? And it has its own arguments.
Going with your let's say, admiration or inspiration from Bruce Lee, which one would you say, this is a very entertaining question, which one would you say is a legit fighter from the movies that we watched when we were growing? Bruce Lee definitely is someone who is legit, I guess, for you. Jean-Claude Van Damme, the other guy.
Steven Seagal.
Steven Seagal. Did he was legit?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know anything about that guy at all. I mean, other than the fact that he trained Aikido, he did the movies. They were entertaining. I'm not gonna lie. But no more than Bruce Lee. Let me tell you, the difference between those two guys is that Bruce was an actor for sure. He did things that in that time that for movie acting. But on the other side, if you go look at the stuff that he was doing in the involvement of martial arts, he was a martial artist as well. People say, "Oh, but he didn't fight." Well, those things weren't happening yet. They didn't have cage fighting. He had a couple of squabs here and there, but it hasn't developed all the way like that. His most fights, what I understand, he had was when he was driving. Because he was a terrible driver. Everybody said that he would pull over. Guys would pull him over, and he'd get out of the car, and he's going to have this fight with this guy because of his driving. Because he cut somebody.
Really?
Yeah, he was the worst driver. They said in California. He lived in I think in San Francisco. They said he was the worst driver, right? But the funny thing was, there was a story that said that he got out of the car, he was going to fight this guy, and all of a sudden a cool sound of music came on. He turned around, he told Dan, the other guy, he goes, "Turn that up." And he's got up on his star, started moving around. "I like that music." And then he proceeds to kick the other guy's butt, right? With the music. I don't know how true that is, but that's what I heard.
Yes. Yeah. What about Chuck Norris?
Chuck Norris was legit. He's a legit, he's a very good martial artist. I didn't ever train with him. I didn't really know him at all, but yeah, he was good. I thought he did good, as far as martial arts is concerned, and the movies that he did, I guess they were all good, I wasn't ever a big fan of his, I really wasn't. I just liked his martial arts that he did.
Okay.
I knew one of his training partners, or one of the other guys that was a world champion called Bill Wallace, because I trained under Bill for a little while. And he was really good, but he always played the bad guy on the movie.
Okay.
But he was really good, but he didn't do a lot of movies. He just, he taught a lot. He was really, really good. He was like my buddy Roland Gomez. He was really good at kicking and punching like that.
Any other big names that you train with or take some seminars or took some...
Oh, there's just so many of them.
Really?
Sorry, there's a lot of them. I'd hate to miss anybody, but, I did all the Jeet Kune Do guys for sure. Dan Salta, which was like the number one.
Yes, I've heard about him. Yes,
guy with Bruce, and
he's from Philippines.
Yes, he's a Filipino. Right. And then probably Paul Vunak, which to me, I think he'll go down as the most revolutionary guy for street fighting. He's one of the top guys coming up with a lot of really good stuff, man. Like for fighting wise, and understanding. He's changed a lot about how I think of things, how I train people. I give him a lot of credit. And of course, my friend Roland, he's never made a magazine in his life. No one even knows who he is. He's in some little town over there, Wharton, and nowhere. But this was one bad mother F.
Yeah.
I mean, he was legit. He was as legit as they come. He'll never. And there's a lot of guys like him.
Sure.
There's a lot of guys like him out there that have never made a magazine you'll never hear about. But there's some bad SOBs, man. I'm gonna tell you what.
Yeah.
So, I trained like with Eric Paulson a little bit. There's a lot of different guys. I'd hate to not drop a name. I had my first role with Randy Couture. I rebel with Randy Couture when he hadn't even made it yet. He was just still coming up, and so he was a real nice guy, big guy, I started rolling with first at a seminar, and I got to rolling with about 10 minutes, and I said, he said, I told him the time out. I said, I want to keep rolling with you, but I don't want to take the time away from everybody else, because everybody else is supposed to be there rolling with him too. Yeah. And he was just being such a nice guy.
Yeah.
He never would tell me you're gonna need to stop, and then you go with somebody. So I had to stop myself to, But yeah, no.
You rode with one of the Shamrock brothers, right?
Oh yeah, Frank. Yeah, we did Frank. While I remember bringing Frank, mounting Frank, and throwing me like from here to that wall over there. Like it was cool. Yeah.
Yeah. Professor, it was a really nice time talking to you. I know for sure there's more to talk, but we need to take some break. But happy early birthday for you. Congratulations on your 50 years on this. And I hope, more people can have the experience that I have with you, that you literally changed my life. You're literally doing a lot for a lot of people that maybe they don't know, but I'm for sure know, they're aware of all the great time and experience that they having with you on the mat, on the gym. And I love the community. One of the best things that happened to me when I say you changed my life, because I met great people there. I met an amazing people. Your family, definitely, but some friends that I have for life now. Yeah. Eli, I can continue to mention Noah, De Galvans, Mario. You got some big guys over there. And yeah, congratulations on all this.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. Again, I couldn't be here without, for sure, my wife and, of course, all the students, right?
Yes.
All the students. I really appreciate everybody, because, you've given me a couple hours here this morning. You'll never get it back. My students come to the gym every day, and, they're going to give me that hour and that 30 minutes of driving back and forth. They'll never get it back. So I really appreciate all that, and I'm very grateful for all of that. And there's so many people that I have to be thankful for, and, but, they know who they are, and they know how I am to be grateful to them. So
with experience, definitely one of the most valued things you just mentioned it's time. It's time. Time is something that doesn't come back. You cannot change whatever you did, but you definitely learn. And that's one of the things that I learned from jiu-jitsu that I practice a lot. You're maybe not going to win, but you're going to learn something. And maybe you're not going to repeat it again. Yep. So that's part of life.
Thank you, Beto.
No, thank you, Professor. Thank you. Congratulations on your job and your 50 years. Happy early birthday. And thank you for listening and getting to this point. Thank you, Professor.
Thank you, sir.
Professor Joe Soliz. Thank you.